welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week or the following month, whenever the two hosts can find the time to assemble again. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Colton Brown, we are here live. We're doing it live.
Fuck it, we're doing it live. It has been a long time since we've sat down and talked about things. I mean, by the time this goes up, I mean we may be hitting a month. We may be actually over a month. I really am not even sure. But we kind of had to take an unplanned hiatus, and you know it's been fine. Obviously, you know we've been living our lives, and you know school's been a thing for me. Work's been a thing for you. Some other things have been on your plate as well. We'll certainly be talking about that.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, let me just ask you up front. I mean, how have you been?
Well, I have been better. I am better now, so to speak.
Good.
I took a little trip, and I didn't take a little trip. I fucking caught COVID is what I got, and that was shitty.
Yeah.
That was really shitty.
When I say unplanned hiatus, I mean Andrew was very sick for a good chunk of time.
Yes.
And was in isolation for 2 weeks, not working, staying at home, watching a lot of TV and maybe some movies from what I can gather. Maybe we'll talk about that later, but certainly not having a fun time. Let's put it that way.
No, we can get into it a little bit later, but yeah, it was not a pleasant experience to say the least. I hope that my antibodies or whatever last longer than 3 months. That would be splendid. But it was definitely not fun. I did watch a lot of shit though, and I did watch one Lego Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yes, the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special is what we decided to talk about for our grand return of an episode, and you know it's a 45-minute. Little holiday special that dropped on Disney Plus probably a few weeks ago at this point, I think sometime mid-November. And so maybe it seems like a curious choice to kind of be the lead-in to maybe hopefully what we hope is a return to normalcy in terms of releases from this podcast. But, you know, I think not only is it a fun little thing that we'll get a chance to talk about, I think this episode's going to end up being a lot more than that. I think we have a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on, certainly, since we last spoke. I mean, you know, we didn't even know who won the presidential election the last time we talked about things. Oof. You know, so it's you know, things have happened in the interim.
Has anybody won the U.S. election?
Well, you know, I guess the electors haven't technically cast their votes, but we will talk about that a little bit later as well. So I don't want to jump into it just yet. But yeah, you know what? You know, I just point to it as an example of, you know, like shit's happened. You know what I mean? Like my semester, my penultimate semester at law school was almost over. You know, I'm in the midst of working on finals and studying for finals and stuff like that, and you know, there's just been a lot that's happened, and so, you know, it didn't make sense to load up our plate with just so much stuff that we'd have to have a 4-hour episode to kind of cover everything. So I think the hope with this episode is to just kind of, you know, catch up and see how things have been and ease back into things with something that's a little bit, I would say, lighter fare in terms of the main content. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of other things going around in this episode, a lot of other things that are going to be, I think, equally the focus, you know, certainly compared to other episodes where we try to tee up the main content and devote the bulk of our time to that. I think we'll see a little bit more of a split in terms of what we're talking about this episode. But on the subject of the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, this wouldn't be a return to normalcy for Watch, Review, Repeat if we didn't have a fun fact related to the you know, the topic, to what we're talking about for the episode. And so I have taken the honors of coming up with a fun fact for our listeners who you know are thinking, oh my God, they're back. What's happening here? You know, I'm sure everyone has been, you know, sitting at the edge of their seats waiting for us to come back, waiting for us to say anything. And I do apologize. I don't think we've really been very forthcoming about kind of why we've been absent over the past month or so. The biggest excuse I can offer is life happens, shit happens. We do this for fun. We do it because we enjoy doing it. And when other things have to take priority, it's just the way things have to be. We let them take priority, and we get around to this when we can get around to it. So we've carved out time, in our lives, and so here we are. And, lives are very important, especially for Star Wars characters on a certain holiday that is known as Life Day, which took the focus. This is my fun fact. I'm doing a segue. I'm a little rusty, which is why I'm pointing out what I'm doing, just in case our listeners are like, I don't get it. Where's he going with this? There's a certain Life Day holiday that is celebrated in the Star Wars universe. And it was the focus of a different holiday special, if you will, a Star Wars holiday special of the 1978 variety, hot off the heels of the original Star Wars' theatrical debut and smash success, and before the likes of The Empire Strikes Back came into existence. There was a little television special that aired once and only once.
Really?
The Star Wars Holiday Special is it's a live action television special. It aired, I don't know if we actually have the official date that it aired, but November 17th, 1978 is when it aired. And it has never been rebroadcast nor officially released on home video. However, some lucky person just happened to have a tape of it, recorded and uploaded it to YouTube many, many years later. So you can watch the full thing in its entirety on YouTube. So my fun fact is basically pointing out that for those who aren't aware, and I think for anyone from an older generation that grew up with Star Wars, they'll know about the holiday special. Doesn't mean they watched it, and honestly, they're probably thankful that they haven't watched it if they didn't get the chance to do so. But yeah, it's this kind of legendary thing that kind of gets swept up into Star Wars, and it's like, for Lucasfilm for many years, and for Disney really since the acquisition of Lucasfilm, it's kind of this thing that everyone pretends doesn't exist. And so it's kind of interesting that, here you have a Lego Star Wars holiday special, and like the Lego stuff is always making fun of, whatever it's, using the IPs from. It's being very silly about that. And it feels like something like the Star Wars holiday special, which is this just honestly incredibly baffling, completely ridiculous thing that happened. Lego kind of characters, Lego makers, like taking inspiration and kind of lampshading this. It feels like a perfect match. So I guess my fun fact is just highlighting that this thing exists. I don't really have anything more specific to offer than that. What I will say is that I did a thing. I happened to watch all hour and a half of this thing in the past couple days before I watched the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. I'm going to hazard a guess that you, Andrew, have never seen the Holiday Special. Is that accurate? No,
I've seen... Well, I mean, I haven't seen it in its entirety. I've seen...
But maybe some pieces, okay.
I've seen probably 4 or 5 different, skits, much like this movie, the movie we're watching. It's broken up into little tidbits.
Right, yeah, it's a variety show. It jumps around. It has kind of a loose, overarching plot of Chewbacca has to make it home to Kashyyyk, as it's called in the special, to be reunited with his family to celebrate the holiday, which is Life Day. Christmas, basically. It's the Star Wars Christmas that they have to come together and celebrate as a family. And Chewie and Han are trying to make it back to Kashyyyk, but they're being held up by the Empire. So we kind of zoom in on the lives of the Wookiees awaiting Chewie's return, and kind of the shenanigans that they get up to.
You get a badass Boba Fett cartoon.
And you get a badass, badass is questionable. You get a cartoon featuring Boba Fett, the introduction of the one, the only Boba Fett, taking place in that holiday special. Honestly, I could probably talk for an hour about what the fuck my immediate reaction in watching it was just like, how did this get made? And why? And who thought this was a good idea? How did George let this happen? I had so many questions. And my understanding is there's several, there's a, how did this get made podcast apparently did an episode of just being how did this Star Wars holiday special get made? I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I did kind of peruse the Wikipedia to get a sense of things, and the general sense I get is that George had a very specific idea, and created a script for it, and that script basically got tossed aside and rewritten and shortened and simplified, and the end result was something that was severely under budgeted and not at all what George wanted it to be, but it served as a vehicle for selling toys, continuing to sell toys until the sequel could come along. So
and that's what it did.
So some of the highlights that I can think of from the Star Wars Holiday Special, just while it's on my mind, before we really shift gears and talk about anything non-Star Wars related, and then we revisit it with talking about the Lego one. There's the beginning of it is literally like 10 to 15 minutes of Chewbacca's family communicating in their home. And when I say communicating, they are indeed communicating in Shiriwook, which is to say that they're without subtitles, without any subtitles.
For 15 minutes?
It's just them just yelling at each other and like kind of just doing,
and there's
tasks as they go about their lives.
Kid. There's the kid Chewbacca.
And Chewbacca's family, they're very important. It's Mala, who I believe is his lady, maybe his wife. I'm not sure what the official... It is his wife, okay. His father, Itchy, who is this very interesting-looking white-haired Wookiee, and then his son, Lumpy, who is just the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. Anyone that hasn't seen what Lumpy looks like, just Google Lumpy Star Wars, and oh my god. Andrew sent a picture to me just now. Honestly... It's even worse in motion than it is in the still, but just absolutely horrifying, like repurposed, super cheap Wookiee costumes, just real bad. So there's that, and then there's just other things that happen. There's like this traitor that comes around. At one point, Chewie's wife watches this cooking show with this forearm
I do remember
chef
that.
who,
Yep.
Stir, whip, beat, stir. Like just.
I think
5
maybe
minutes of that.
I think maybe I've seen this whole thing.
Chewie's dad has this thing that he puts on his head, and then he has like this weird like erotica fantasy thing that he has with this woman. There's a storyline. There's stormtroopers and the Empire come barging into the house, and there's a point where they watch a Jefferson Starship music video. Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford all make appearances in this kind of throughout.
And I did not think
horrifying.
Yes, I did. Like when I watched it the first time, I was like, "There's no way that's Mark Hamill. Doesn't look like fucking Mark Hamill."
They're all kind of buried in weird hair and makeup styling. Like it's all just very bizarre and low budget and like clearly like rushed and stuff. And it's like, I mean, this thing had a budget of $1 million, and I just have to assume that went to paying for getting these people to appear. One interesting note in terms of casting from the original movie not making it into the holiday special is that R2-D2 was credited as R2-D2, and that's because Kenny Baker was not involved in this whatsoever. So I'm not sure if he was the only one that had any sense to be like, no, fuck you, I'm absolutely not doing that. I really don't know how they managed to convince. I mean, not that, it's not to say that like all these people had some major clout after Star Wars happened. Like maybe they locked them up before Star Wars became the success that it was, but that wouldn't even make sense because surely you wouldn't think about doing a holiday special until after the movie was already successful. So I don't know. I would love to know the contract details of just being like, yeah, you can't be in the sequels unless you're also in this thing. Like maybe that's what it is. I truly don't know. But
the one that surprises me the most is Harrison Ford. I imagine him giving the biggest stink about this shit. Because he was like, wasn't he like legitimately, did Star Wars make him famous, or was he famous because of Indy?
Oh, I think Indy came after. So
yeah,
I think
you're right. Okay.
Star Wars in terms of timeline was kind of what I think. I mean, he was like a carpenter, I think, when he got hired.
Yeah, I remember that now that you say
Wars,
that.
so.
Yeah, he was fitting a door on the studio or some shit.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't think any of them had the clout to say no, but still, I just feel like one look at this and like, if you don't have to, like, why would you? But I don't know. Maybe at one point it was intended to be something kind of fun and silly and good natured, but it just turned into a just absolutely bizarre mess of. I mean, I just have to assume everyone involved was doing a severe amount of drugs, like a critical, worrisome amount of drugs, because it's just bizarre. It's a scene where. There's a guy that has a hole in his head. He drinks things in a hole in his head, goes to a bar and hits on the bartender, who's Bea Arthur. I just got nothing, man. I just got nothing to talk about this thing. Just incredibly insane. And then the Boba Fett cartoon, I guess we already talked about that. But yeah,
that's on. It's on YouTube. If you care,
the whole thing. You can watch the whole hour and a half on YouTube. I don't recommend you do it, but you can. I mean, skip around just to get a sense of things. I mean, just the most truly insane thing I've seen in a long time. Just that this was allowed to be made. I don't know. I mean, it's honestly so fascinating, like that this thing exists, and so I kind of love that they managed to turn this into like, let's kind of have fun with this and do a Lego version of this, with the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. Like, let's acknowledge this super weird out there piece of Star Wars history that kind of often goes unnoticed. And clearly, like I said, Lucasfilm was very keen on just being like, we've never heard of this thing. We have no association with this thing. What's that? You said we made it? No, I don't recall. I don't think we made it. I don't think we had anything to do with that. You know what I mean? So anyway, perhaps we're being a little bit too long-winded, but I really had to get it off my chest. I mean, having watched, you can't watch an hour and a half of the Star Wars Holiday Special and not talk about it. I mean, what in the fuck is this thing? So anyway, let's leave it at that. Let's revisit the Holiday Special, Lego or otherwise, in a little bit of time. Let's talk about some current events. We don't really do that too often on this podcast. I think we've done it more so recently. However, I think that there are a couple things worth talking about. And I think the first thing that's really worth talking about is probably the most pressing current event. It's been the most pressing current event for the entirety of 2020. It has turned 2020 into a lost year. And for some people, a fatal year. For many people, a fatal year, unfortunately. And that, of course, is coronavirus. That is COVID-19 disease, still a thing for those wondering, those listening at home may be wondering, is it still around? Yes, it is. In
fact, it might be getting worse.
In fact, it is getting worse. That is a fact. So I want to talk just kind of numbers, just to hopefully put things into perspective for people that still don't understand the gravity of what's happening right now. And then if that doesn't do it, I will turn it over to Andrew for giving a personal account of what it's like. I mean, I can't speak to it. I've tried desperately to avoid contracting it, and obviously that's not always enough. You know what I mean? Like, you can take protective measures as much as you can, and sometimes that's not enough.
Right.
But I've been fortunate to not have any. If indeed I have contracted it, I've never tested for it because testing's still not really that available. I was non-symptomatic, and so I honestly wouldn't have known. Not everyone is so fortunate, and Andrew will talk to that in just a couple minutes. But just in terms of numbers, pure cases worldwide. We'll start worldwide. Other places have gotten a better handle on things. Not that everything everywhere is perfect or anything like that, but total cases worldwide. I mean, we're looking at just over 70 million people that have contracted the virus, which has resulted in 1,587,350 deaths as of December 10th. So we're talking about 1.5 million people that have lost their lives to this thing, which to me seems like a not insignificant number, personally speaking. Now, in terms of, taking a microscope to America a little bit more so, there's last reported to the CDC 15,271,571 cases reported in America, with 288,762 deaths reported in the United States alone. So we're speeding towards 300,000. I mean, I hate to say, I talk about box office numbers like it's fun, and I don't mean to make light of this, but we're speeding towards 300,000 deaths. I mean, just purely numerically talking about things. I mean, these are insane numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, 300,000 people. That's a lot of fucking people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to fathom, I think, on some level. And if anything can help put it into perspective in terms of what numbers look like, I think over the past few days we've seen such a huge spike in deaths, particularly. I mean, obviously that is correlated with the amount of cases that have been coming in over the past month, maybe a couple months or something like that. But we crossed, I think, yesterday 3,000 people dying in one day. Which, and again, I'm not saying any of this to make light of anything. I really don't think it's making light. I think it's making a very stark comparison. The amount of people that died in the 9/11 terrorist attacks at New York and the Pentagon and Pennsylvania was 2,740 people. And that's a lot of fucking people to die in a single day. And
we
we're now
waged a
looking
war
at-
for 10 years for that.
and now we're looking at, people possibly dying multiple days in a row at a number more significant than that.
And we choose to...
a number greater than that.
The vast majority of people choose to ignore that.
And the vast majority of people turn a blind eye because
And they
don't
say
want
when
infringements
we
on
have the
their
option to quit
civil
spreading it
liberties
and take a vaccine, we won't take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is one of those things. You hope you come out on the other side, and not everyone does. Not everyone does come out on the other side. You hope you come out on the other side and look at this, and maybe, God, let's hope a decade or 2 decades, and you can look at this as perhaps the greatest American catastrophe of probably most people's lifetimes. I think is what it's going to ultimately be remembered as, and for good reason. I mean, it is a shit show through and through, and that's underselling it. It's the lack of any effective response is alarming. It's baffling. It's upsetting. It's frustrating. And we're looking at it now where vaccines are starting to get approval, and they're coming down the pipeline, and they'll probably be distributed early 21 throughout the year. But in terms of like how long it takes for a vaccine to really effectively stem the loss of lives, we're looking at a matter of many months, I think, realistically. And so it didn't have to be this way, is I think kind of my ultimate takeaway of, governments have powers for a reason. They are entrusted with doing the right things for their constituents. And I think we can objectively say that letting 300,000 people in your country die because you failed to take action, or minimally failed to take action soon enough, if we're going to put it that way, if we're going to be light about it, it's unacceptable. Now, clearly, there are enough people that disagreed in terms of blaming one person, which we'll talk about in a second. But I hope that those numbers just kind of illustrate, a point for people this is just insane. Like we've never seen anything like this. Certainly not in our lifetimes, and maybe not ever. So I hope that people understand that. So I think maybe, if you're comfortable kind of talking about it, I mean, you came down with the virus and you were symptomatic and you were kind of out of commission for a bit of time there, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, I did in fact get down with the sickness.
Down with the sickness. Ooh, ah.
Yeah, and I can say, so normally, first and foremost, I don't know how I got it. I will say that I feel like I've been very proactive about wearing my mask. I am in Florida, and just about anything goes in Florida. If you want to go do something, you can go do it. And I have done things. I've gone to restaurants. I don't know what else I've done, but I've done things. I've done things that are not advisable.
Well, you've seen people, even if in small settings, there are a number of things and
all
things
of which
that have inherent risk attached to them, but
right,
they're not necessarily. It's not that you're, going to Trump rallies and stuff like that with a bunch of maskless people that are,
No, and I always try
super
to
spreader events or anything like that. Like,
I've always tried to be aware that I need to wear my mask, and I falter here and there. I'm not perfect, and in the environment that we're in down here, it's very easy to slip. I guess it's not an excuse, but the environment's definitely different.
It's reflective of the culture. You know what I mean? Like if Governor DeSantis said everyone wears masks and businesses are shut down for X amount of time, people would probably listen, you know what I mean? And if you foster a culture of people not giving a shit, then people aren't going to give a shit, and you shouldn't be surprised by it.
Yeah, so I ended up catching it. I don't know where I caught it at. I there's no telling. I would think it's probably because I chew my nails. I chew my nails a lot. But I don't know. Just fingers in my mouth is a terrible thing, and there's a fucking pandemic. I put my fingers in my mouth. Doesn't make any sense. Anyways, I got the shit, and it was normally when I get sick, I usually get pretty sick because I don't get sick very often. But I have never ever been this sick for this long. I can say that. When I first got it, I had so I have a bad eye. I fell in a cattle prod when I was a baby, and it skewered my eyeball. And I have a high eye pressure in my right eye, and it gives me headaches sometimes. And when I first started displaying symptoms, I didn't know they were symptoms because I'd get a headache, and I felt cold. But Sarah was out of town. She was in Texas, and I was just home, and I thought I was just getting cold. You know what I mean? I felt fine, and then I'd get the occasional headache. And so like Thursday and Friday was getting headaches. Friday I left early, and Saturday I didn't go into work. Or no, I closed up early on Saturday as well. And because I was just getting really bad headaches and I was feeling nauseous. Sunday rolls around and Sarah comes home, and I felt really shitty. I was freezing. So she took my temperature, which makes sense. I didn't think about it. And I was running a fever. And I slept all day. I didn't have any energy. I just slept all day. And so the following day also felt like complete shit. And I went and got tested. And I slept all that day. It was brutal. No energy. My fever would spike to like 104. I'd pop a Tylenol. I'd sweat it out. I'd wake up in a pool of sweat, and drink a couple bottles of water, go back to bed, and then wake up when I was running a fever and had to throw up again. So every time my fever would go up, I'd get nauseous and I'd have to throw up. So I'd throw up, and then I'd come back, lay down, and just lay in a pool of sweat. It was fucking miserable. That happened for a fucking week. It was absolutely fucking miserable. I slept the vast majority of the day. For the first week, I didn't watch any TVs or shows. It was just sleep, wake up and sweat, do it again, real bad, real bad. So once that stopped, I did feel a little bit better, but then I had a cough, and the cough, if I didn't move, I didn't cough. If I didn't talk, I didn't cough. Like if any more air than like shallow breathing came out of my chest, I was coughing, and the coughing wouldn't stop. I would get myself into a coughing fit, and then I'd end up having to throw up. So I'd cough until I threw up. I'd come to bed, and I'd drink some water, put something cold in my throat or whatever, and the coughing would stop until I'd move again or whatever, So that happened for about 4 or 5 days. So that when I had the cough, I was watching shows because I didn't feel like death. I just had a really bad cough. So I was pretty okay at that point. And then I had 2 days that I was still like mandatory quarantined, that I actually felt like legitimately fine during that time. But lasting effects, you read a lot about lasting effects and what happens after COVID. I didn't right now. I feel 100% right now. I feel just as fine as I felt before. But like for a week or two after, minimal activity got me winded. Like I'd walk from the back of the car lot to the front of the car lot after dropping off a car, or I would have a long-winded conversation with somebody, and I'd have to take a couple. I'd realize that I couldn't breathe. So there was that. I'm glad that passed because that was pretty shitty. But overall, I would say it's not hard for me to imagine. I'm overweight. I'm not in shape. I'm not terribly I don't think I'm not terribly overweight. But I'm not in the best. I'm definitely not in shape. I smoked for like 10 years. So I'm sure there's like damage to my lungs to some extent. And it hit me really fucking hard. I thought it hit me hard. It's not hard to picture. It's not hard for me to imagine if I had a serious condition or even a minor one that I wasn't aware of or whatever, but it's not hard. Like, for example, if Tylenol didn't knock down my fever, I'd have to go to the hospital. Luckily, it broke my fever every time, right? It's not hard to imagine that if you catch it, you could have some serious fucking problems. It's not hard for me to imagine. And you have to think like more than half of America's got pre-existing heart conditions, diabetes, overweight, obesity. We're predisposed.
there's a good chunk of the population that is afflicted with the condition that's called being older, with weakened immune systems, just naturally speaking. So,
and it's so bizarre because my grandfather and my aunt both caught it, and they were sick for like 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that get it and they display no symptoms at all.
No symptoms, right? Yeah, it's just so unpredictable in some ways of how it can impact you. So I almost think that makes it scarier. It's like your risk is maybe I don't even feel this at all and I don't even notice it, or risk
you die.
The risk is that I die. Yeah, you're
and
right.
Somewhere in between.
At its harshest point, like it's a range, right? Maybe you're basically down for the count for a week plus. Maybe you're down for the count for a few days. Like, I don't know. That's just such a.
But there's some people I know that
describe thing.
I never lost my sense of taste or smell. But there's some people that don't that still don't have. They've had it for 3 or 4 months. They haven't had it for 3 or 4 months. There's some people that still can't breathe. There's just a huge number of different things. It's fucking crazy. But anyways, it's really shitty. So if you can avoid getting sick.
So you're saying you wouldn't recommend your experience?
I would not recommend my experience. Okay. No. Would not recommend it at all. It was really shitty. I can't say it was really shitty.
No, I mean, you kind of communicated with Enrique and myself a little bit kind of throughout things happening to you, but it was pretty clear you were pretty much out for the count, and it was a little scary, admittedly, just not knowing like how's he doing today, we're very glad. I say collectively, myself, any listener of this show, unless they hate you for some reason or they hate listening, in which case I guess fine, you do you or whatever, but we're very glad that you're feeling good now. I mean, you said you're 100% basically now, and that's great. That's awesome. But I hope that people don't take the wrong lesson of saying like, well, he got better, so I can too. Like maybe,
and the vast majority of people do get better. Vast majority of them do.
That's true. That's a factual point. You know what I mean? But I like to put everything in terms of risks.
That's it.
So, there are daredevils out in this world that are okay with climbing mountains and and walking on high wires and stuff like that. They take risks. That's what they thrive on. But I just think, but there's something like this that is so unpredictable. Like to me, walking on a high wire suspended at thousands of feet in the air with no nets below you, like there's a pretty good chance you're going to die if you fall off.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. But I just think if you look at it in terms of risk levels and accepting risk and looking at what you're comfortable with, I mean, the easiest answer is don't accept any risks that you don't need to take. And I think in a lot of circumstances, it means enduring personal hardships of, I can't see my friends, maybe I can't see my family. When we talk about Thanksgiving, I mean, Thanksgiving passed, a few weeks ago, and so happy Thanksgiving since we didn't have a chance to say that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that chose to spend Thanksgiving alone, and I myself admittedly did see Anna's parents. We did a self-imposed kind of quarantine for a couple weeks before then to try to make sure that we're not spreading anything to each other, and we kept it very small to a party of 4. But some people chose to feel like that was too great a risk, because even that was a risk. You know what I mean?
That's
like
okay.
I don't excuse my own behavior. I'm saying that I knew that it was a risk, and I tried to minimize the risk as much as possible, and then I took it. You know what I mean? And Christmas is coming up, and people are going to be in the same position of they want to spend time with their family, and like I don't mean just immediate family. Like you live in the same house with someone, like you're gonna see that person. Like it's gonna happen.
It's a risk.
I mean, in terms of like, are you flying? Are you hopping on an airplane and traveling across the country? Like I myself will be heading down to Florida, the land of
the land of the
COVID.
brave.
Well, maybe not COVID land. I think that actually probably belongs closer to the Midwest at this point. But like I'm not flying. I'm gonna drive down. Like I'm taking a risk and going down there and seeing my family. Seeing my parents, which is basically what it's going to be, more or less. I might say hello to you at one point. Who's to say? We'll see. I'm sure I will. But you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to drive fucking 14 hours. But I don't want to be at an airplane. I don't want to be on an airplane. First of all, I don't want to be at an airport crowded with thousands of people.
Yeah.
Who were wearing their masks below their noses, or maybe not wearing masks at all because enforcement is lax. Like I just don't want to put myself in that position. And so I guess my message and taking a lot of time to talk about this and hopefully hearing Andrew, I feel like kind of makes this point in a very dramatic fashion of saying, hey, it sucks, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, is basically saying, like, you know, be careful out there, and you know, and where you can, help yourself and help others. Like, I really think you should do so. You know, like, I think it's a simple thing to,
at the very least, just wear the
put on a fabric
mask.
mask, and, like, you know, like, yeah, you can't breathe as well, or, you know, it's like, you know, not great, but, like, you're not killing yourself to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, in the sense of, oh my God, my breathing is so short that I'm going to die from this. Like, you are preventing droplets from entering your mouth, hopefully your nose if you're wearing it properly, and you're preventing droplets from escaping your mouth and nose and going into an atmosphere and lingering around for people to ingest it. You know, I'm not saying you're spitting in someone else's mouth. Like, that's not how this works. You know what I mean? It's a very simple thing of, hey, I just happened to sneeze in this one area and someone walked through in a minute, and what do you know? Like,
boom,
they're sick a couple days, you know, a few days later. You know, it's very simple sometimes, and sometimes it's unexplainable. Like, you don't know how you got it, and, like, you know, it's not as simple as pointing to a very finite point of your life where, like, oh yeah, I did something really dumb, that's how it happened. Like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You know, it's unpredictable, and people that even wear masks and take precautions can still get sick. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do those things, because you are minimizing the risk to yourself and minimizing the risk to others. And I feel like that's a pretty okay and sensible thing to do. So that's my pitch to the world, to the however many listeners that we are still getting after our hiatus, I guess I'll say. So, do you have any other thoughts on coronavirus before we move on
just
to maybe the next big current event?
It's I feel like it's a shame that something as, in the 21st century, something as obviously something like this is not, I don't want to understate it, okay, but in the 21st century, I think we should all pretty much be aware of germs and like sickness and vaccines and
how science works.
And
yes.
how science works. Like, we're in the 21st century. We have satellites in orbit. I mean, we have fucking cell phones that can put us on the moon. We've got all sorts of shit, right?
Yeah.
We should have a pretty, like, even if it's just at the most layman level, a simple understanding of this. I caught it. I admittedly am not the most safety dude, right? I'm not the most, you know, I've done stupid shit during this pandemic. I will admit it. And then I contracted it I'm probably as a result of me gallivanting around and this and that. But I've always respected it. I've always had an understanding of it, and I've always been vocal, and I've always tried to be pretty safe. You know what I mean? But it's just disheartening to be around so many people who discredit it and don't respect it and just think it's a hoax or think it's just the flu or whatever, because it's not just the flu. It's not the flu. If you've had the flu and you've had the corona, you can certainly tell it's not the fucking flu. You know what I mean? You can certainly tell it. And for people to walk around and say it's the flu is disingenuous. It does a lot of harm. Like a lot of harm that we're probably going to talk about here in the next current news and events. There's words can cause harm, and I think that people have
misinformation is bad.
Yes, misinformation is bad. Yes,
you know, some things are just objectively true, and it's okay for things to be objectively true. Like, not everything needs to be challenged, or, you know, like, I'm not saying, like, you know, you have everything you hear has to be true or anything like that. I'm just saying, like science is, like, pretty it's pretty rock solid about a lot of things. Like, you know, most things that are generally accepted in science were you know, everyone tried to poke holes in them for a while. Like, they poke and prod to see, like, what makes the most sense, and they kind of come to this, you know, agreement and this consensus that, like, yes, this is how this thing works. Like, we have done everything that we can to see if we're incorrect on this, but everything points us in one direction. And when enough things point you in one direction, you can kind of just go ahead and say, that's the thing. But
vaccines have been around since 1798.
Yeah.
I think. They might be around before that. I thought they were around a little bit older than that. 1798 people have known about fucking vaccines.
And they have been effective.
People
I don't know
have
maybe
been,
necessarily since 1798 how effective they've been, but like, hey,
you can go back.
You guys still want polio? I mean, I don't want polio. Fuck no. You know,
you
what I mean?
can go back to 1000 A.D. and this is by the Physicians of Philadelphia, by the way. Historyofvaccines.org. The first inoculation happened in China in 1000. So I mean, people have been aware of this shit. People have been. I mean, here we are. 1,000 years later, and for some reason we're going backwards. It's fucking bizarre.
There's a very,
it's fucking bizarre. It doesn't.
I want
make
to say
any...
unexplainable regression. However, I think it is explainable. It's just not sensible.
Is it the internet? Is the internet causing people to go backwards?
I think it's part of it. I think it's contributing to it. You know,
it's amazing.
You know,
like if you were a fucking alien and you've been watching us for thousands of years and learning about humans,
part of the Galactic Federation. Yes, go on.
That's right. Like the kids on an anthill, right, or whatever, and you're just watching them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they these ants, they built this massive thing, and it's fucking cool. And then all of a sudden, they start turning into like little barbarians, and they just fucking go backwards for some reason. They tear down their anthill, and they just fucking all die. What the fuck happened? They went backwards. Doesn't make any fucking sense. It's fucking... what the fuck? It doesn't make any sense at all. Anyways, here we are, COVID-19, and I see on a daily basis people talking about microchips and vaccines and autism.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the situation with coronavirus. I hope people understand our concerns where they are and listen. You know, it's a hard skill to have apparently, but you know, I hope people listen. So the next thing I think that's worth talking about is revisiting the subject of the election. You know, we're another heavy hitter. You know, and I organized this specifically to say that, like, hey, one of these things is an ongoing thing. And to be honest, one of these things is kind of a little bit in the past. You know, it's in the rearview mirror, really, at this point. You know, there are, shall we say, certain things that are yet to come and certain things that are ongoing in terms of the electoral process. But, yeah, I mean, last we spoke, we were in the midst of things, and things were looking good for Mr. Joe Biden. But I'll just say things are looking excellent for President-elect Joe Biden right now.
Well... I don't know. I heard there's some states that are suing or throwing a ruckus or something. I haven't been following it since I got sick.
This is another shit show without a doubt. So, you know, media projections, which have been a time-old thing, were in fact used in a 2016 election, which, as I recall, was won by a certain individual who was very content to give a victory speech the night of. Not at all related. Not an observation. I think that, you know, is worth making for any reason, of course. But, you know, I think Saturday afternoon is kind of when things really fell into place in terms of media projections of who's going to win the presidential election. I think Pennsylvania was called at that point. I think Georgia actually was called at that point. And the count as it stands today, when we can say that all 50 states and the District of Columbia have certified their presidential results, and some of them have recounted and still certified. After certification of results, Joe Biden will have 306 electoral votes compared to Donald Trump's 232 votes. Now, of course, 270 is the threshold you need to be elected president. I'll let people do the math on which one of those numbers is greater than 270 and which one is lesser than 270. It's not a difficult calculation. I will say as much, though. Joe Biden ended up with a new record in terms of just pure votes received at 81,282,000. Donald Trump was no slouch, admittedly, in terms of receiving votes, far surpassing his 2016 vote margin just in general, with 74 million votes, 200,000, which is to say that turnout in this election was at a record high. People came out in droves to vote, or they voted from home by mail, you know, in advance of the election because of a little thing called coronavirus. You guys might have heard of it. It's a joke because we just talked about it for a lot of time.
You know, so, here's the thing. You know,
yeah,
there's a lot of turbulence. I'll just use the word turbulence.
It's probably a good word.
Or disagreements between whatever, you know, the turnout of the election. people want to argue that the rules of the election were changed during the middle of the election. There could be voter fraud. There probably was voter fraud is another argument, blah, 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 blah. And the argument that I have is this has always been my argument. Donald Trump won the last election because of the Electoral College. He didn't win popular vote. Over the course of his 4-year term, do you honestly think that Trump united people, or was he decisive in driving a wedge in between the separate parties? Did he do an effective job of alienating a population of people? And I would say that, if anything, he polarized people more than he brought people together. Now, you can argue against that all you want, okay? But the way he talks, the way he does his business, the way he conducted himself as a president did not do anything to bring more people to his side. Now, obviously the numbers went up, so obviously more people voted for him than last time. But it's not hard to see why he lost the popular vote again. Like, I mean, he didn't win it the first time. He wouldn't win it the second time. You don't think he would, do you? And most of the time when you talk to somebody that's level-headed, no, I can't picture him winning the popular vote, this time. It doesn't make any sense.
I think generally speaking, and this is probably magnified because of who Trump is, and yes, the way he conducts himself. I don't really think that the popular vote is necessarily designed in a fashion to favor Republican candidates, period. Not anymore.
Oh, that's true.
If it, I mean, it's not to say that they couldn't win. Obviously, it's happened, but it hasn't happened in 2 decades plus. Hasn't happened in 2 decades plus that has come to fruition. So, I think there's a changing tide in just terms of the demographics and how people tend to vote, which isn't necessarily based off of party registration or anything like that. And so that's kind of a factor. However, the Electoral College, but on the flip side, it doesn't necessarily mirror the allocation of population in the country, and so that's why, for as many times as the Republican candidate has lost the popular vote, they've still managed to come up with a victory in terms of the Electoral College. So, I guess I should correct myself. I do believe George W. Bush did win the 2004 election in terms of the popular vote as well. So let's say 16 years is the last time it happened, but he did lose the popular vote in 2000 in a very notorious situation against Al Gore. But I think that certainly the system has question marks built into it in terms of just how it works in terms of the breakdown of which party it might favor. But things are always a shifting landscape politically. And 2016 was obviously a massive shift from 8 years of President Barack Obama to let's elect Donald Trump as the next president of America, right? And so
fuck, what a transition.
It's a harsh transition, and certainly people felt enough about a certain thing that they felt compelled to cast their vote in that way.
You want me to tell you something?
Enough people did.
I don't know if we
in the
talked
places
about
that
this.
mattered, I guess we'll say. But yeah, go ahead.
There was a speech that Joe Biden gave. It's like 45 minutes. I think it was in Pennsylvania. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe it was a little bit before the election or during or after the election.
Yeah.
It was like a 45-minute long monologue. I fucking got a little emotional, dude. I actually think not like I wasn't weeping, but I think I had a single tear rolled to my eye. It was a beautiful thing to hear a president fucking talk
and sound coherent and intelligent. Dare I say?
Just sound like a normal fucking human. I mean, that's just give a good written speech.
It's been 4 years, since
people say, "Oh, he read from a teleprompter." Fuck you! He can read. I mean, what? God damn, he read from a teleprompter. So does fucking everyone. What's the problem? I don't fucking get it. It's so frustrating. I'm so frustrated. We could go back and forth on this and commiserate, I think, for a long time, in the sense that the polarization is just honestly insane, and I think it gets to a point where people are so polarized that they don't
want to engage anymore. And to a certain extent, I mean, obviously, I may be falling in on one end of the spectrum in terms of that, but I do legitimately try to understand people that vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I do legitimately try to understand. It's not even about Donald Trump, even particularly. I try to understand with people that try to vote for a candidate that is not a candidate that I support in any given election. You know what I mean?
And that's important.
I try to understand what their concerns are, what their sensibilities are, and then that gets to a certain point where I'm just like, I actually don't understand this. Like, there are things that I can tangibly, expect
the economy,
and understand.
Immigration, foreign policy. There's these things that you can entertain from another person. And a lot of times, if you take the time to listen and you take the time to understand and you take the time to just put your shoes in another, you take your feet and put them in another set of shoes.
Right.
A lot of times, maybe you can compromise. If that's a thing,
or even if you disagree, you just get it. You get, like, you know what? I do think
I understand
that
where
is
you're coming
valid.
from. I disagree.
I like, that's not how I want to do things. That's not how I think things should be done. But, like, yeah, I mean, sure.
And I think the right answer, okay, you take the left, you take the right. I think the right answer is always just about somewhere, maybe a little left, maybe a little right, but it's somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't have to always have it my way. I mean, I can understand and take a lot of shit from in the middle. I can.
Right, and and in some ways that's the name of the game is having three branches of government, having a system of checks and balances to get people that necessarily may not all feel the same way into a common ground enough that
and I think
shit can still get done and have hopefully a positive impact, and you know what I mean, not just be a state of
I think
nothing existing that changes anything and moves the needle in any sort of direction at all.
I think the one saying that works best is you get more bees with honey than you do vinegar. Is that the saying? I think that might be the saying. I may have fucked that up. I don't know. I'm in Zephyr Hills. I may have fucked it up a little bit. But the point is you get more done when you can be somebody not like Trump, like when you can learn to communicate with other people and understand a different side of things. And I think that's the most egregious thing about Trump, in my opinion, is his lack of leadership and his alienation of anybody that's different than him.
I think that's true. I'm not going to agree with Joe Biden on maybe even a lot of things that he does, or maybe I think he won't go far enough, just in terms of what I think he should do. But I will never feel like he is the type of person that is going to openly antagonize me for existing or feeling a certain way. And I feel like that is the case with someone like Trump. And that's the kind of
that's
thing
not a
where
leader.
I draw the line.
That isn't a leader. That isn't
agree.
a president.
I agree. Yeah.
So, anyways,
Trump lost. Get fucked. See ya.
Deuces.
I mean, honestly. Good riddance. I can't think. Obviously, we're at the point in our lives, perhaps, where we're the most politically active we've ever been. Right? It's just you get older, you kind of.
Who made us that way?
I think you understand things a little bit more.
Well, it's not even that. I think that politics are in the forefront of our headspace every day. Maybe it's because we had somebody like Trump who was so loud and not. I don't know.
Well, he motivated enough people to vote him out of office.
It's true.
And honestly,
and the scary thing is, though, he motivated more people to vote for him. Think about that.
That's true. Yeah,
at least people are politically active, I guess, is one way of looking at it.
That's good.
The more people that vote, the more
you want to have your voice heard.
That's it.
And be active in the process. The scary thing for me personally is that if I fully 100,000% honestly believe that if COVID-19 did not take the shape that it took, which is to say that if it wasn't an active thing that was still killing people on record, basis, if Donald Trump just stuck to the fucking playbook that his office inherited in terms of dealing with a global pandemic, he would have been elected to a second term without a doubt in my mind, because I think enough people in the right places would have said he did a good job with that, and if they were right to say that, then I think that's what they would have voted based off of, or they would have not changed their vote based off.
I think
of.
he's one of the only presidents not win a second term in
Yeah, I mean, historically, incumbents are incredibly favored in terms of just looking, at re-election prospects. Like, it happens that incumbents lose. It just did, obviously, but it's uncommon, certainly. And, to motivate a record turnout where the new, president-elect is, breaking records in terms of the just pure amounts of votes received, not necessarily in terms of percentage of the vote received, but just purely in terms of the amount of votes received. Like, clearly you fucked up somewhere, or you did something that people disagreed with enough, if you don't want to say such a harsh thing of, but I don't know. Anyway, he's not conceded. He's pretended that he's won this entire time. He's just basically sticking his fingers in his ears and saying la 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 as Rudy Giuliani and the like lose lawsuits left and right in courts, and Texas's attorney general files a lawsuit to just like overturn the election results. It's like you have no standing here. Like there's nothing you can do here. Like that's not how anything works. Like I'm sure you went to a law school somewhere, and I'm sure you learned something about the law somewhere. And let me tell you something, this ain't it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, obviously people were worried about the prospect of the Supreme Court being a very heavy conservative majority now with the confirmation of Amy Coney Barry. But like, there are certain tactics that could have been helpful, and there are certain tactics that just simply will not succeed, and that's another one. So in a month plus time, Trump's going to be gone. I mean, if Secret Service is pulling his ass, out of the lawn, like, kicking and screaming, like, they'll fucking do it. I don't think it's going to come to that personally. I just don't think it will. But like, I don't know. This whole charade is just fucking nonsense. And it's just baiting people into believing it.
That's where the damaging thing comes in. It's
fostering misinformation with no basis in fact whatsoever, and people are buying it. It's scary that democracy can be undermined so easily. And it's not to say that like they're just subverting the election results and Trump's going to hang out for another 4 years and turn into a dictator. Like I don't think that's realistic. But the fact that people are seemingly okay with that and just don't fundamentally understand our democratic processes is just kind of just like, where did we go wrong? You know what I mean? Like I've disagreed with Republican candidates in the past. I've disliked people in the past, but like, how did we get here of all places? Like, How did we get to this point? Is this the culmination of a racist America that's basically been racist since its existence? Is it the culmination of, politicking for decades that has, led to the disenfranchisement of millions of Americans, to the point where like the people that are still around are the people that we don't want to hear? Like, why do people feel so emboldened?
I think
have they always been around, and like now they just are coming out of the woodwork, or are more people just kind of getting converted into this kind of almost a cult-like being, cult-like status, I would argue, but I don't know. I don't know.
It would be a unique. It'd be a really good. You've been working super hard on a fucking ridiculous project. That would be a ridiculous project. Research into how people like. I don't know. I don't even know what you would call it. Just what is the cause of that? I would say it's because people have. I would argue that because people that would normally not have a platform now have a platform, and they're loud. They're much louder. Everything is so much louder than it ever used to be. And those people that have those platforms are allowed to connect with people in ways that they've never been allowed to connect with before. When would you ever listen to a white supremacist? When would you ever do that? You wouldn't do it. Of course you wouldn't do it. That's terrible, right? But if I can hop up on a Facebook feed or whatever, if I can just wiggle my way in there and just inject a little piece of thought about something, and then all of a sudden now you're, it's I don't know, man. It's the social. What's the social dilemma? The social dilemma fucking warped my brain.
Yeah,
it's true. I don't know if it warped my brain, but I don't know. It was just enlightening. It's interesting how we're all connected in so many different ways now, and the people that you'd normally not listen to, or normally you wouldn't have access to, you do have access to them now, and all it does is polarize. And
yeah,
it's fucked up.
Yeah,
fucked up thing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
So
I'll tell you what else is fucked up.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, let's hear it.
Hard transition.
Hard transition.
Moment of silence, moment of respect, in honoring the only host of Jeopardy that we've ever had, Alex Trebek. He passed away from his pancreatic cancer battle at the age of 80.
Yeah, I mean...
How's that for 2020? Fucking Alex Trebek's gone.
Only host in our lifetimes, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought he was the first host.
He was not. Jeopardy does predate.
Does it really?
Trebek.
I did not know. I take it back. You should lead the hard transitions. I'm sorry.
Well, I was ready to pivot, and then you just went right into it. So I appreciate.
I'm very passionate about Jeopardy. I watch Jeopardy almost every day.
Alex Trebek served as host of Jeopardy from 1984 until, unfortunately, he just passed away a few weeks ago in 2020. So yeah, I mean, when we think Jeopardy, you and I think pretty much anyone at this point, you think Alex Trebek. He's a legend. But however, it was previously hosted by Don Pardo and John Harlan, it was hosted by Art Fleming, and then Alex Trebek. So Art Fleming was the original host, and then it was changed to Alex Trebek.
Who the fuck is Art Fleming?
He's just a man.
He's not my host.
He's just a man. 1964 to 1975, he served as host. I don't know. It's certainly before my time. But Alex Trebek is an institution in and of himself. I mean, I guess was an institution in and of himself, unfortunately. Jeopardy, I think, is probably my favorite kind of just game show in general. I just love it. It's fun to watch. It's fun to play along with, and God, I would be terrible if I ever showed up on it. But except for sometimes they have pop culture centric,
and you fucking get the whole column.
I get the whole category, and then I usually notice that no one there is I don't know what any of this shit is. What? Star
Right.
Wars? I've never heard of that.
I'm fucking smart.
Yeah. Their interests are clearly very differently aligned, which is fine. That's great, obviously. But yeah, Alex Trebek, I think, announced that he had been diagnosed with cancer over a year ago, 2019. He went in treatment and had recovered, and then I think it may have kind of come back. And unfortunately, that's how cancer works sometimes, is that you can't truly eradicate it. And, when it comes back with a vengeance. And, I mean, to have as much of an impact on just, I would say, the world as much as Alex Trebek had is it's really kind of astonishing and worth recognizing. And so, yeah, I mean, a moment of silence is certainly appropriate for someone like Alex Trebek, who has been a fixture in so many people's lives, ourselves included, for forever, basically, for us. Since we've existed,
a lifetime.
Alex Trebek has been a fixture. So. I mean, absolutely rest in peace to Alex Trebek. You never wanted to hear that news, and obviously when he was diagnosed, it was a hard thing to hear. And I think they're still airing a few more episodes that they had kind of pre-recorded before his passing. And then after that, I think Ken Jennings, who was kind of a longtime champion, is kind of expected to take over as a temporary host until they find someone to fill Alex's shoes, which perhaps they will never truly be filled. I don't think that, I think that's probably fair to say, but Jeopardy is a fun game that, I think, can still live on without him, but it will perhaps never be the same.
No. And just on a side note, I always loved when the contestants were talking about how they knit the sweater, or they did this, or they did that, and he's like, okay.
He's like, all right, you're a weird fuck, let's move on. Carol, it sounds like you went to a fan convention where you dressed up as a Viking, is that right?
Okay.
Okay, let's play Tafel Jeopardy.
So batted out the best. Fucking Alex Trebek. Man, a legend.
So rest in peace.
That's it.
To Alex Trebek. And a couple more pieces of sad news up at the top here. I kind of lumped them together, admittedly. We've lost a couple iconic actors iconic actors who played iconic villains. So the great Dave Prowse, who was the physical actor of Darth Vader in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, unfortunately passed away at 85 in late November as a result of COVID-19, complications from COVID-19. Darth Vader is perhaps the most iconic villain of all time. And many of us obviously think of James Earl Jones when we think about Darth Vader in terms of hearing the voice. But Darth Vader had a physical fucking presence too.
Yes, he did.
And that's Dave Prowse that gave life to that. And one thing, he was 6'6", and I think that was a big part of kind of the physical, presence that Darth Vader carried.
Dude was a bodybuilder,
just the way. Yeah. I mean, and he gave Darth Vader that sort of menace. I think, just physically speaking, that is part of the character.
6'6" bodybuilder. He's fucking massive.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. So, that was a really unfortunate thing to hear about. So obviously we'll also say rest in peace to Dave Prowse.
On a side note.
I
googled David Prowse and I'm looking up pictures of him. Isn't it ridiculous how different bodybuilding is today versus how it was back then? Like, you look at like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson today, compared to this guy who was probably a world-renowned bodybuilder back in the 60s and 70s. The body physique is completely different. It's nuts. Anyways, this is a side note. Something I noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I think perhaps there's more substances being used these days in terms of bodybuilding, and that may be partially to blame if I had to guess. But yeah, no, it's an observation that's interesting, certainly. The kind of last, kind of in memoriam piece of news that we have is about Hugh Keays-Byrne, who actually pulled double duty in terms of being a villain for the Mad Max franchise. He was Toe Cutter in the original 79 Mad Max film. And then, a few decades later, he was the Immortan Joe in Mad Max Fury Road. And so Hugh Keays-Byrne, unfortunately, passed away at age 73. Said that he died peacefully. I don't think we know anything in terms of specific cause of death or anything like that, but it does seem like it was fairly unexpected. I think for me personally, I mean, Fury Road is much more recent in my memory and kind of the more iconic Mad Max film to me personally. I mean, obviously it wouldn't exist without, Mad Max 1, 2, and 3 happening, but the Immortan Joe is just a cool villain, just another good presence in terms of a villain. That voice, just the design of the character was just very, very cool. And
that did the voice and all that for him, for Immortan Joe?
Yeah, everything. I mean, I'm sure it was processed digitally a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, it's all him,
Fuck.
Physical, voicing, like that was all him. So I mean, those are his two kind of biggest, I think, roles that are known to people. He did once upon a time almost play the Martian Manhunter when George Miller was doing a Justice League film that never came to be, and in its place we got a fantastic Justice League film that everyone loves. So yeah, another one, just a bummer, There's no good things really to say, when anything like this happens, other than just kind of remember, the contributions that they made in terms of their roles, and that the fact that, a lot of these roles will live on, hopefully forever. I mean, something like Mad Max Fury Road is cemented as an all-time action film, and Immortan Joe is, just an incredible villain within that, and certainly someone like Darth Vader is someone we're going to be talking about later in this episode.
And Toe Cutter's memorable too. I remember him vividly.
Toe Cutter too, yeah.
So excellent actor. They live on through the film, man. It's awesome.
Yeah. So rest in peace to Hugh Keays-Byrne, alongside, of course, Dave Prowse and Alex Trebek.
That's what makes them stars. Have you ever thought about the term star? What it is to be a star?
I guess not with any sort of meaningful depth, no.
No, I mean, it's what makes a star. It's what defines a star, their ability to live on beyond their lifetime. And, it's fucking cool. Yeah. So, hats off to Alex Trebek and Hugh Keays-Byrne and David Prowse, man.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's move into some newsy news. So, maybe I'll say this up front. There is a lack of Disney news because as we're recording, Disney is dropping bombshells left and right, and there is so much to unpack there that we are saving that for our next episode. So stay tuned on that front. In terms of the non-Disney news, I mean, Disney always dominates our news anyway, so it's kind of almost unique in that regard. In terms of what's going on with those other Hollywood companies, those other ones you may have heard of, that still exist until they're bought out by Disney. The Fantastic Beasts franchise is getting a little bit of a shakeup. So Johnny Depp, for a while now has been embroiled in a lot of controversy about domestic abuse allegations with his then wife, Amber Heard. He sued, I believe, a British tabloid for libel, kind of related to that. And he lost that particular legal battle against the tabloid. And as a result, he was asked to vacate the role of Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts franchise.
So he lost his libel case, and Disney said, "Well, you're out."
Not Disney. Remember, this is not Disney news. So yeah, I mean. Kind of, yeah. I mean, basically, the story here is that Johnny Depp was asked to leave, and so he's gone. He's gone. WB said goodbye.
So that means his libel case was found to be the story was true. They weren't just talking shit. It was true.
I don't know the specific details of it. It's not to say that basically. I mean, I think because it was specifically a libel case, it's more just to say that whatever the newspaper said about him or the tabloid said about him didn't rise to the level of being libel. Like, they probably said some pretty negative shit about him, but it's not necessarily dispositive of what the allegations were about between him and Amber Heard. Like, that's a separate matter. It's just basically saying, like, yeah, I mean, we said some shitty things, but that doesn't mean we can be held liable in court for the shitty things that we said. It doesn't rise to what that standard is, whatever that standard is over in Britain, I guess I'll say. So anyway, I guess to say long story short, Johnny Depp's out, and in his place to take over the role of Gellert Grindelwald is none other than Mads Mikkelsen. Which,
okay, I'll take it.
I mean, you ask me, it's a big fucking upgrade in terms of just, actor to another actor. You couldn't ask for a bigger upgrade, in my opinion. That said, am I excited about the Fantastic Beasts franchise? No, I'm not. I mean, the last one was garbage. J.K. Rowling is a transphobic piece of shit. I don't really want to support, her continuing work. So it's unfortunate because I think Maz is great, and I love seeing Maz in anything that he pops up in. I think he would have been an even better pick than Johnny Depp would have been from the get-go. Like, they should have gotten him from day one for this role. But anyway, news is news. We must report the news, I guess, and stuff like that.
What did she say? What was the news with her? J.K. Rowling.
I mean, she's basically she doesn't consider trans women to be women, which, she is lumped into a group of people that are called TERFs, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists, which is, they're feminists, except that they don't consider women to be women in certain respects. So it's this kind of weird cognitive dissonance thing where, they have to feel superior to someone because they just, I don't know. They don't accept that for some reason, reasons that I am not going to attempt, honestly, to wrap my head around other than to say, like, it's just another thing that's just plainly incorrect. Like, you could say what you want. Like, obviously you're entitled to say dumb shit and some hurtful shit, but like, doesn't excuse your behavior. You know what I mean? So yeah, the fact that WB is continuing to stick around, like, to keep her around. I mean, obviously, like, she basically has her keys to the kingdom with the Harry Potter franchise. Like, I don't think WB could dump J.K. Rowling and still make a Fantastic Beasts franchise a thing. So it's obviously a difficult situation to be in if you're a movie company, but I don't have to necessarily support that. Will I still see Fantastic Beasts 3? I don't know. I truly don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm at the point where, like, even putting that aside, I'm
even if the
I'm
IP,
very close to losing
it's not like
interest.
the IP's great. The IP,
all right. I'm like this. Like, I would have been fine with Harry Potter finishing after the 8th film. Like, I didn't need any of the Fantastic Beasts stuff. Thought the first one was charming and fun enough, and then the second one was a disaster. And I'm just like, okay, I'm good. Like,
don't need more.
You can tempt me with Maz, and honestly, it is tempting, I will admit. But like, it's not going to be enough for me to look forward to anything like this, certainly. So I don't know.
All right.
So that's what I have. That's what I have on that front. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, but we can move on in the interest of moving on.
Let's move on in the interest of moving on.
In the interest of moving on, let's move on. Let's talk about some huge fucking news. I mean, some stuff that's really ruffling some feathers, I think, in terms of the Hollywood elite and stuff. And Christopher
Fuck my AMC stock, I'll tell you that.
Well, fucked AMC stock, I'm sure. Christopher Nolan was none too pleased, amongst others. WB, I mean, Warner Brothers, I mean, is making a very radical decision. Trailblazing decision, absolutely, about how people will get the chance to watch their movies, not only at the tail end of this year, but throughout the entirety of 2021. So this all started with WB making an announcement that Wonder Woman 1984, which had already shuffled release dates many times and had at its last placement ended up on Christmas Day, December 25th, was still set for a theatrical debut, and it will still get a theatrical debut on December 25th. However, they've also decided that it will debut day and date, December 25th, on the HBO Max streaming service, which is huge. You want people to stay at home. You want people to stay at home, give them something to watch at home. Give them a Wonder Woman sequel to watch at home. I mean, holy shit, that's massive, and HBO Max, obviously, that's WB's new streaming service. They certainly want it to be supported and people to subscribe. And so, Disney is putting something like Soul on Disney Plus on Christmas Day. And so here's WB doing a similar kind of maneuver of, let's take our big fucking movie and put it on the thing. And it's not exclusively on HBO Max in the sense that, yeah, you can still watch it in IMAX. You can watch it in theaters if you're okay with doing such a thing, if those environments are open in your wherever you live, basically.
Or for $15 a month, you can catch every major Warner Brothers picture.
Or for $15 a month, you can minimally watch Wonder Woman 1984 in 4K, the first movie that will be available in 4K on the streaming service, which is great. That was my biggest concern, was just like, oh, so I'm gonna have to watch it in dog shit HBO streaming quality, instead of watching it in a theater like I wanted to 6 months ago. Yeah, this is great. I mean, just the starting point of like Wonder Woman going up on HBO Max on Christmas, like, fuck yeah, that's a great Christmas present. Thanks, WB. I appreciate it. Like, I'm used to Disney being the one that gives me all the presents, so I will happily take this from another source.
And I feel like this is almost a bigger get than Disney giving presents because, at least from what little bit I read, it's not like a premium release like Disney's like, hey, spend $30 to watch this movie.
So there are a few caveats, but I think the caveats are certainly less severe than they were with Mulan's kind of the Disney shit with Moulin of pay on top of paying to get this. If you pay $15 and subscribe to HBO Max, you will get access to Wonder Woman 1984. You don't have to pay $15, then pay $20 or $30 on top of that. You just get it. It's just part of the package.
Fuck yeah, that's good.
So the caveats are it'll only be there for a month. So December 25th to January 25th, you'll be able to watch at HBO Max.
Okay, no problem.
Fine, you get a month to do it. Great, no big deal. And then you can buy it on 4K, Blu-ray, digital, whatever you want in a few months' time after that, or it'll still be in theaters at that point. If hopefully, if they're safe to go to at that point, unlikely but possible, I suppose. So there's that, and then the only other thing that I think is totally understandable personally is that they've pulled the availability of any free trials. So you can't just do a week-long free trial, watch Wonder Woman, and then like, I'm good. I don't have to pay anything to watch Wonder Woman. They're pulling all the free trials once this kind of kicks in. So you'll have to pay $15, but you're paying $15 to watch Wonder Woman for as many times as you want over the course of a month. So it's like super A-list if you're literally looking at it in terms of, I want to watch Wonder Woman 800 times, or you can watch anything else that's on there. Within that month, and let's just say, to preview the next piece of news, you'll have a lot more to watch in 2021 if you keep your subscription going on a monthly basis. So, yeah, that's kind of the catch. I think those are pretty minor things to, like, I think they're very understandable things to implement, personally.
I think out of all the streaming services, I think HBO Max, I really feel like HBO Max probably, but even before Warner Brothers said what they said. I think HBO Max has a tremendous wealth of fucking content.
I agree. I mean, for me, the biggest hurdle with HBO Max is that it wasn't
streaming
available.
Quality.
Well, the streaming quality is not great. It's on par with HBO's previous quality, which was not great as well. I think it's just that there was some sort of contract disputes that prevented it from being available on Roku platforms and it being available on Amazon like Fire Stick platforms.
Shitty. Yeah,
and I think that shit is either resolved or is current. Has been resolved to the point where those apps will be available moving forward if they're not already up there. So that's another. That's something that's in the rearview mirror. Now the fact that they're willing to put things in 4K to me signals that they clearly have the capability to do so. So I think they're out of excuses. Like all the HBO original content should be 4K from this point on. Like, sorry, like everything should be in 4K. If it was filmed and mastered in 4K, you should put it on your service in 4K. If you want to charge an extra $5 and make it $20 a month so everything's in 4K,
okay.
I think that's like I'll deal with it at that point. Like maybe I'll bitch about it, but I'll deal with it. Like you have the capability. You don't have any excuses to have piss poor streaming quality anymore. Like you can't ride that excuse out anymore, I think. But anyway, 2021 is going to be a very interesting year for Warner Brothers. If we may move on to kind of maybe the bigger announcement after Wonder Woman's announcement, and that's that WB is saying every single one of their films is going to debut day and date on HBO Max alongside their theatrical releases.
Including Dune. I mean, we'll run through the list of kind of what's on the calendar. Okay,
but yeah,
what do we got?
Dune. There's 17 films in total that will be available on HBO Max. The same day they come out in theaters, and to me this is kind of insane because it's like Dune is like an October date. Like, hopefully theaters are okay by October. I mean, I guess if they still exist, if AMC is still a company that's around, maybe that's the concern. But like clearly they think that there's enough money in their streaming game that it's worthwhile to just keep these things on schedule instead of just delaying them until they can get them into a theoretically kind of rock steady theater environment, closer to what it was before. I mean, I guess they're assuming that 2022 is going to be closer to that because this only applies to films that come out next year. But like, there are some heavy hitters in the bunch. They are not putting nothing on the streaming service here. So it's the same principles, $15 a month, no free trials. These will only be available for the first month of their release date, then they'll get pulled and then later released in kind of a traditional home media fashion, blah, blah, blah. But here's what you're looking forward to if you have HBO Max through the entire calendar year of 2021. First of all, you got January 15th, a Mortal Kombat reboot, which has no information today.
Whoa, what?
Like, some casting, no images of this for something that is basically a month away. I'm a little worried about. I'm thinking it's going to be pretty bad if they've hid so much to date, but maybe not. But anyway, free on HBO Max basically because I'm going to have it anyway. Great, I'll watch it. Okay,
fuck yeah.
The Little Things is a Denzel movie coming out where he plays a sheriff January 29th. Rami Malek's in it. Everyone's favorite Jared Leto plays a serial killer in it. It's probably pretty appropriate, actually. So that's happening. Tom and Jerry, March 5th, 2021. Tom and Jerry, anyone? We do want to talk about the trailer now for that while we're on the subject. You want to wait? to talk about Tom and Jerry?
We'll just have its own designated area.
Okay, well, wait. We did get a trailer for Tom and Jerry, I will say, so we'll talk about it in just a bit. The Many Saints of Newark is March 12th. That's the prequel to The Sopranos HBO show. Reminiscence, April 16th. It's got Hugh Jackman, Rebecca Ferguson, a.k.a. Leggy Bay. Tandy Newton, a.k.a. the Mission Impossible 2 Bay, Scarf Bay, if you will. It's a sci-fi drama. I don't really know anything about it. Maybe we'll get some more information on it. But anyway, that's coming out in April. May 21st is Godzilla versus Kong.
Oh, no way! New subwoofer is coming in my home soon.
Yeah. So that'll be something. I mean, that's like an IMAX kind of thing for me. But hey, free at home, okay, whatever. I mean, not like I said, not free.
$15.
I'm free for saying free because regardless of all of this, I would have had HBO Max anyway. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's the third Conjuring film. Fine, whatever. Hey, more in a franchise that's really not that too bad, not bad for what it is. In the Heights, that's Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical before he did Hamilton, getting a film adaptation. So you can look forward to some Lin-Manuel Miranda goodness. Space Jam: A New Legacy coming in July, starring LeBron James taking over the main role from Michael Jordan. The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, August 6th. Talked about that, a few episodes ago with kind of the stuff that came out with the DC fandom and all that. Dune, of course, October 1st. Our boy Denis Villeneuve, with Timothy, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac. Of course, Dune, October 1st on HBO Max.
That's a good birthday present for me.
Yeah. Elvis, an Elvis biopic with Austin Butler and Tom Hanks comes out in November. King Richard comes out November 19th. That's with Will Smith. Yes, that's correct. It's about Venus and Serena Williams. So the name is a little misleading. I was just like, wait, what? But yeah, that's a sports drama coming at you. And December 22nd, you've got The Matrix 4 with Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss back in there, directed by Lana Wachowski. So and that's not even touching on the things that don't technically have release dates right now. So you got Judas and the Black Messiah, which we got a trailer for a little while back about Fred Hampton, the leader of the Black Panther Party. Malignant, which is a horror film from James Wan, who worked on Conjuring, Insidious,
Aquaman,
and Aquaman, yes, most recently. And then Those Who Wish Me Dead, which is a film from Taylor Sheridan.
Taylor Sheridan's my dude, isn't he?
He is. That's the man. So
fuck.
Those are films that you can look forward to on HBO Max, in addition to everything that's on there, all HBO content, maybe continuing seasons of their shows, new series that they put up on there, whatever movies they have on there in addition to that. HBO Max value proposition is looking mighty good. Disney Plus, I feel like, there's so many things that have been announced for that, and we're like, hell yeah, Disney Plus is worth $7. And like, HBO Max is twice the amount of money like it costs per month, but like, and I think that was maybe more expensive like for what it was at the time, but with this factored in, like, it's a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's what you were paying for. That's what you pay for HBO, like $13-15, right? So
yeah, roughly around there, right? Yeah.
So if anything, it's, I don't know. It's just, I'll be honest with you. Short of like true IMAX experiences, I'm going to continue to invest in like my home theater situation, and short of IMAX experiences, I don't know. It's just so fucking convenient. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I hear you. So yeah. Anyway, that's
new subwoofers coming in.
Oh, okay. You're continuing the upgrade, the home theater environment then.
Yes, I'm just gonna go. I have to have the subwoofer. That's the only thing that's really missing, I think. And I have to get some subs, and then I'll be good for Godzilla and Wonder Woman, and Those Who Want Me Dead, and fucking
Tom
Dune.
And Jerry.
Dune will be watching IMAX.
Dune. Yeah, okay. Well, my hope is like October rolls around and like, and maybe that's an interesting conversation to have, is that, there are some movies in this bunch that like, if it's safe to step foot into an IMAX theater and pay $15 to watch it that way, I will do that.
Absolutely.
Like, I will pay to watch Dune in IMAX if it's safe to do so. Like, that said, maybe I watch it in IMAX once and then I go home and watch it a couple more times at home because I'm like, well, fuck, this is great. You know what I mean? But like, there are still movies that I will still prefer to watch in a theater environment. But to have this as an option is just awesome. It's just awesome, I think, personally. So, it's a big fan. Big fan. Christopher Nolan, AMC, not huge fans, but what are you going to do? Anyway, Tom and Jerry, official trailer. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so we get a Tom and Jerry trailer. I watched a shit ton of Tom and Jerry growing up. I really like Tom and Jerry. This has got Chloe in it, and the guy from Ant-Man, the guy that tells the story.
Yeah, Chloe Grace Moritz and Michael Pena.
Yep. The cartoon, it's got a real like what was the one with the Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of feel to it, doesn't it? the way it's animated with the cartoon and like live action at the same time. It's kind of
right. It's not intended to be like a realistic. It's not like Sonic, where they're like, let's take Sonic and put him in the real world and like animate him to look kind of real while still like taking the design inspiration. Like it's like these are like fully animated characters in a otherwise completely live action environment.
Just straight up, I can see a lot of inspiration from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah,
which is
3D animation versus hand drawn 2D, but yeah,
right.
Otherwise, I think the principle is exactly the same. Yeah.
And it's Tom and Jerry. Well, I don't know if it looks good.
Yeah.
I don't know if it looks good, but
it looks fine. I feel like this could have been a complete disaster, and it didn't. Like it.
It could have been Garfield. It's not Garfield.
Could have been Garfield. Yeah, that's an apt comparison, certainly. Smurfs could have been the Smurfs movie that they did a few years back. Maybe they did two of those things. Good Lord.
Yeah, it's not that. So I mean, it looks like it could be fun. It could be funny. The animation does looks very good.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they're not horrifyingly realistic Tom and Jerry. They're just like kind of basically the same style, just kind of 3D animated and transposed in the world. Like I think that's more interesting to me, I think,
right,
than trying to make them seem like part of this world. Like they're clearly like, I don't know, they're still themselves too. Like it does seem like a pretty quintessential classic kind of characterization of Tom and Jerry, just with fucking real ass humans around them for some reason.
And I'm sure there's probably going to be a in-world reason why you have these cartoon elephants and this cartoon cat and mouse.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I don't know. It's fucking Tom and Jerry set in the real world.
It looks fine. I mean,
I totally would have appreciated just a fucking like, let me introduce Tom and Jerry, the cartoon, to a modern audience. I would have, and you know how fucking weird it is for me. I had a dream last night. Speaking of which, not to go off on a tangent. We've been off on tangents a lot in this episode, but we haven't talked to each other in a long time, so fuck it. I had a dream last night that I was listening to a song, and then I realized it was on the oldies station. Like, what the fuck?
Do you remember what the song was?
Shit. I think it was. Shit. It was the Paralyzed song. It was Paralyzed. I'm paralyzed by you. I want to see
11?
you move. Yeah, that song.
That's probably what, mid 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
no, probably mid 2000s.
But it was like on like 105.5 fucking oldies Delilah. All right, everybody. It's like, oh, what the fuck? What old am I?
Yeah, it's just, it's right next to Led Zeppelin. You got Finger 11, so.
And then, here I am talking about Tom and Jerry introducing it to a modern audience. How old am I? Anyways.
Well, Tom and Jerry probably predates us.
It does, by a good
years,
bit, I
would
think.
guess. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, I got the principle. I mean, I think this could have just been a fully animated film.
That's what I'm saying.
The same style. Like, yeah, that would have been fun. Like, it didn't need the live action. Like, maybe that even detracts from it, I wonder, potentially. So, yeah, I guess we're on the same page on that front. But, is this a movie that I would, under normal circumstances, see in theaters? I mean, probably not, unless you're really
I'm watching that shit at home. Thanks, HBO.
But HBO Max, okay. Well, yeah, maybe.
We're going to be covering a lot more. It's going to be a dupe of 2020.
Yeah.
Except
cover
Netflix,
every WB film that comes out. Maybe not.
We're going to be watching it all on fucking HBO Max.
Well, it's certainly going to be convenient to watch them all. Let's put it that way. So anyway, Tom and Jerry is a March movie and in theaters and on HBO Max. So
next trailer.
Yes, let's move on to the only other trailer, in fact, for a film called Chaos Walking with Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland and Mads Mikkelsen. He's back. He's back for more on this episode. Little YA fiction kind of vibes here. Anything that's anything that sold you on catching this sometime in 2021? Apparently January 22nd, 2021. Are you ready to stomp your way into a theater in just over a month to see this?
Is this a WB movie?
No, this is a Lionsgate movie, so no HBO Max for you, my friend.
Fuck. I don't think I want to go to the movie theater and watch this one. What? It's really gonna, this whole like streaming thing is gonna redefine what I want to see in movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good for the movie theater.
Well, Nora is being shut down for 3/4 of a year, so
that's true too. But yeah. So chaos walking. All the females on this planet are dead, but they must have not died like a long time ago. They must have died fairly recently, because you have Tom Holland and he's a young man. So within like 20 years, 25 years, something like that, however old he is.
Presumably he was born somehow, is what you're saying?
Yeah, unless the men found a way to like have a womanless society. And I don't know, but they have little thought bubbles, it looks like. There was a big snake at one point. Did he make that snake happen in the trailer? Because it was his thought?
I don't know.
I don't know. This one looks kind of weird. It might be good. It might be real shit, though. I've seen some real shit sci-fi the past during my sickness.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, certainly, but yeah.
But sci-fi can get real shit. So I don't know. I don't know about this one. It could be real shit, or it could be thought-invoking and kind of cool, but...
Yeah, I mean...
Trailer didn't leave me with a whole lot.
I agree with that. Trailer didn't do a whole lot for me. I think the more interesting story of Chaos Walking is its production history, which, I will say Daisy Ridley and Tom Holland and Maz are all great. Like,
yeah,
I would
excellent.
Absolutely love to see, I would think most movies involving those three as the three lead characters. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
This is a movie that was shot in 2017 and was set to release in March of 2019. And then it got kind of pulled from the schedule, and then they ended up reshooting a lot of it, I think, later that year. And then COVID hit, obviously, and so whenever it was indeed supposed to hit, like, they just fucking bumped it even more. So to me, that seems like a bunch of red flags to say that, hey, we've been, holding on to this thing for quite a while, and usually that's for bad reasons. It's because they don't want it to come out, or they want to bury it when they can. And what better opportunity to bury something than in the midst of a global pandemic to just drop it in theaters? Be like, oh man, I can't believe no one saw this. Oh well, okay, well, let's move on with our lives. You know what I mean?
It's like a new mutant kind of situation.
Would be it. That would be the one. That's the kind of situation I refer to. So yeah. If it was streaming, I would watch it.
Yes.
Netflix. If Netflix picks up the phone and says, "Yeah, we need something to fill in the gaps,"
we'll buy it.
But yeah. Otherwise, it's gonna have to wait. It's gonna have to wait if we indeed ever do see it. I'm not expecting good things from reviews to come in, anything like that. But anywho, 3 more pieces of news, and then we'll talk a little bit of Lego Star Wars, and then we'll catch up a little bit as well, and then we'll call it a day, I think. But we're getting a new Predator movie because the last one was such a riveting ride, and
it's an IP and it needs to be fucking twisted for every drop of intellectual protocol. We're gonna intellectual property. We're just gonna drain it.
And I tell you what, I love Predator 1. I'll tell you what, man, I love that first film. I'll tell you what. I think the first one's really good. So,
with Arnie, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. So obviously, a few more attempts have been made since.
What was the one with the planet? The planet that they got dropped off on? Is that Predators?
That was Predators, which I think is okay. I don't think it's great, but it's okay.
With Brody.
With Adrian Brody, the badass. Yeah, badass Brody. The second one had Danny Glover, and Gary Busey. Classic that it was. But really, that fourth one, the Shane Black one, was just bad. It was bad. It was real rough. It was a real rough one. That fucking shit with the armor at the end. I mean, I can't get that out of my head.
What about the AVP? The AVP.
Yeah, we'll also chuck that into the pile of let's forget about these things.
Even the second AVP?
Even the second one, which had some badass Predator action in it, but was still definitely a bad film.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you couldn't see a fucking thing as well. So anyway, we're getting another Predator because, as you say, it's an IP, and we got to do something with it. 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg will be directing this installment, to be based off of a script written by a man whose credits include the series Kingdom, Jack Ryan, and Treadstone. So,
it could be, if it's directed by the 10 Cloverfield Lane the Lane guy, I will hope that it will be another instance of the first Predator.
Yeah.
A group of helpless people are one by one picked off by a fucking invisible predator. That'd be fucking cool.
Yeah. I agree with you. I really don't think there's anything inherently wrong with doing another Predator movie. It's just that the track record leaves something to be desired, I think, overall. And like Predator 2, like, they changed the environment, but otherwise it was kind of the same, and it just wasn't as good. Predators was at least trying to do a bit of a different thing, and, just it was fine. It just, wasn't anything special. And then the fourth one, like, I don't know what the fuck happened there.
What do you need from a Predator movie? Do you need a bunch of
no
Predator lore?
No, I don't need another one. I absolutely do not need another one. Do I think that doing another one is the worst idea I've ever heard? No, I don't need it, but I do think that it's possible to make another one that's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Even without it being a carbon copy of the first one, I still think it's possible. But at this point, clearly just hewing as closer to the first one's probably the best winning strategy you could come up with. But I don't know. I guess I'll play wait and see on this one. Like, yeah, I absolutely do not need this. But fine.
I want a slow,
I guess,
methodical, suspenseful horror Predator. That's what I want.
Yeah. I agree. I think that would be. I think yes, do that. Less action heavy. I mean, do something even closer to
like
Alien,
Aliens,
the first Alien, or
Alien. Either one. It doesn't matter. Where you go in there, like, what I think of? I think of that old school AVP game where you walk into the thing and people, like, they got the guy that's hanging upside down and shit, and they're like, "Oh my god, what the fuck's going on?" And it's like one Predator. And yeah, that'd be cool. There's really cool things that could happen.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them have undermined like how badass a Predator can be. Like, obviously Arnie did defeat a Predator one-on-one, but like, it's fucking Arnie. When Arnie does it, you're kind of just like, yeah. But then when Danny Glover does it, you're just like, well, when Adrian Brody does it, or like, oh, you know what I mean? So it's like, it kind of undermines them a little bit. And I'm not saying the Predator has to win at the end of the day, but you put The Rock up there or something like that. I'd be like, he's pretty. He's got arms that are the size of tree trunks. Yeah, I could see how it is. I could see how that would work. But
that'd be great. That's exactly who Dan needs to cast for the next.
But at the same time, Arnie outsmarted the Predator. It wasn't like a brute force matchup. He just let me coat myself in mud and cover myself so you can't try. I think it's some badass shit. That's some Commando.
That's a fucking good movie, The Predator.
It's a good movie. It is a good one. So if they can make one that isn't a piece of trash like they have done with the past few, great. I'm all for it. Don't make shitty movies. I mean, what a principle, I think. So I know. I'm just coming out with the hot takes today. Anyway, let's move on to maybe some bittersweet news. I think. The Expanse has been renewed for another season, but indeed it will be the last season of The Expanse. So, number 6, season 6 is going to be it for The Expanse, which to me is pretty surprising, because obviously Amazon took up the reins from Sci-Fi and has given it new life.
They bought it for 2 seasons, essentially, right? 2 seasons? No,
it'll be 3 when this one comes into existence, but I am surprised. I really thought that Amazon was content to just chuck money at this thing and keep it going until they.
I wish you were caught up, because you could tell me if you think if it could finish what it needs to finish by the end of the.
Yeah. Well, so I think I can at least provide somewhat of an answer, because I'm behind on both the books and the TV show. But I was very curious about this because there are planned 9 books in the Expanse book franchise, 8 of which have been released. The 9th one is forthcoming next year sometime, I believe. And, to me, that was like, okay, well, then you do 9 seasons. You do roughly a book per season or something. There's some sort of split along those lines. to the point where clearly doing 6 seasons is not going to be enough to cover 9 books of material. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Even with changing and combining characters like they've done in the series, there's just no way you could do it. And so my understanding is that kind of the way the books are organized, the first 3, like there's kind of loose trilogies where like the first 3 are pretty connected, the second 3 are pretty connected, and the last 3 are a little bit more connected. And my understanding is that come the end of book 6, there's something pretty big that happens that feels like it could serve as a sort of ending to the point where you don't need to necessarily have the storyline of the subsequent 3 novels for it to still feel complete in some
so that's
sense.
just where they're going to draw the through line, you think?
And my understanding is that things progress in such a way that perhaps accomplishing it in the form of a television show could get expensive and difficult. And so maybe that's probably part of the factor is like, how do we do this? And like, realistically, we can't do this the way that we wanted to do it, without making the budget of this 3 times what it is and stuff like that. So I'm sure that was probably part of the decision-making process.
That one guy got called out for sexual assault or something.
Yeah, and he's gone. He's not coming back. He's not coming back for the final season. They did an investigation on that. And
did they get the results from it?
I don't know if they said anything publicly about it other than to say that, like, we're not bringing him back for another season, which to me seems like a pretty clear-cut answer of we either don't want to deal with it or what we found is not good, and we're going to leave it at that.
He was the pilot, right?
It was the pilot, yeah. Kaz Anvar, the actor, plays him. So that's obviously a bummer, and I don't think that. I mean, you never want to lose one of your principal cast members, but I think they could have worked around that for another few seasons. So I don't really think that's the driving force of like why they're ending it. I really think it's probably plot centric of saying, hey, let's end this on our terms.
I'd be curious to know what happens to what makes it so expensive. I don't read.
Know. I mean, I tried to steer clear of specifics so that I didn't spoil myself too much on big things. But
I'll spoil that shit for myself. I'll go look it up.
You can look into it if you want to exercise your curiosity.
They've already had fucking intergalactic rings in the fucking thing.
Like, yeah. So I don't know.
We'll see.
I'm not sure.
And it's Jeff Bezos. He's got more money than there's ever been on Earth ever.
I mean, truly and honestly, that's why I thought the series would go on as long as. The story demanded it. You know what I mean? Like, I thought Bezos would just chuck. Jeff Bezos could single-handedly fund 800 million seasons of The Expanse. Like, he could fund it to the point where every single cast member has either died or been banned from the show because they like to harass women sexually. Like whatever the reason is for departing the show, like, he would have the technology to create CGI lifelike models of them that look completely lifelike and convincing. And
he could honestly probably create anamorphic fucking robots to replicate the actors.
Yeah, I mean, he probably has enough money to fund building these sets in literal space.
That's it. He could just build the fucking spaceships.
You could just create the type of light speed travel that is possible in the universe with the amount of money that he has.
Turn it into a fucking documentary.
And just make a documentary and call it The Expanse. That's how much money Jeff Bezos has. So I really did think that they would let this show go a lot longer than 6 seasons. But money's tight for Jeff. He says, I got to buy another 6 mansions. So
that's it. Fuck, that's funny.
I gotta pay a lot of no more taxes for my company, and so Anyway,
I think the next piece of news might be the most fucking exciting piece of news because I thought it was a rumor when I read it.
I tried to end on a very exciting piece of news that I think is exciting for both of us, but particularly for you. So why don't you tell me what's going on?
My boy Poe Dameron, Oscar Isaac, is set to play Solid freaking Snake in Sony's Metal Gear Solid adaptation. They're making a live action adaptation of fucking Metal Gear Solid starring Oscar Isaac as fucking Solid Snake. Does that mean that we're going to get Big Boss Oscar Isaac?
I mean,
God damn, this is just fucking epic piece of news.
Oscar Isaac should be playing Solid Snake. He should be playing Liquid Snake. He should be playing
all
Big
of
Boss, them. Let him gray out his beard. He can play Old Snake later on.
What an incredible piece of news! Absolutely incredible. Are they gonna? What are they gonna do? If anything's needed a adaptation, it's this fucking game.
I don't know. I mean, I think the first game particularly is like the most adaptable to a film type environment. Like you still obviously have to streamline it because it's a video game, and you got to simplify the plot so that it's not 10 hours long, and stuff like that. But
easy though. It's not hard to have an espionage
for this first
movie.
One particularly, it's totally doable.
Fucking Sniper Wolf. Oh my gosh, this is just gonna be so fucking epic with the music. Look at this dude's fucking face. I can't. I try to like curb my enthusiasm on a lot of things. Okay. Yeah. He has the forehead for the fucking for the headband. I could just see him kicking ass. Oscar Isaac's the man. I hope
is he gonna have that David Hayter voice? Kept you waiting, huh?
Yes, he is. I think he will.
He will. He'll be badass. That's a great casting.
Oh man.
I think Christian Bale was rumored for this for a long time, and maybe fan cast for it. But Oscar Isaac he's a good
he's the choice for sure. It's incredible casting. Oh man, I have no words. When's this coming out? Do we know?
That's a good question. I'm going to say probably not in the imminent future. Maybe a 2022 plus type movie. It does have a director on board. It's Jordan Vogt Roberts, who did the Kong Skull Island movie. I think was the last thing that he did. And I think he's been attached to this for like at least a year plus, if I'm not mistaken. So,
do we know what game this is going to follow?
I think it's going to follow the first Metal Gear Solid.
Okay, which is the one that ends with the Solid Snake fight at the end. Or the Liquid Snake fight at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
In
like
the Arctic or the Alaska or whatever, right?
Yeah, most of it takes place at that like the Arctic base, whatever it's called.
Fuck yeah, so good. Name. So good. Oh, dude. Do you have any thoughts about this? Because I just like, oh yeah, so cool. Like I have, it's just pure joy.
Shadow Moses.
Pure
elation.
Pure elation
that I'm thinking of. But
the only other thing that would be cool would be Big Boss and like Ocelot, Revolver Ocelot, and that sort of thing during Vietnam. That'd be fucking cool too.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
this is
plenty cool. This is successful. You can kind of take the franchise in a number of directions, whether that goes prequel, like Snake Eater type era, or dealing with 5 type events,
like old clone kind of deal.
Yeah, or you do Metal Gear Solid 2 and you have Raiden come into the fold and Snake takes a back seat, or you can do 4 with old Snake. Like you can do tons of things. Like I mean, the thing is, there are things that were like the Metal Gear Solid franchise is fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
And like
it's
a good
true.
way, I think, for the most part, but like in a way that some of it would need to be pared down and adjusted and kind of, rewritten, I think, a bit to fit a movie type environment.
You could totally do it though. It's made totally cinematic.
But it's truly intended to be a cinematic video game franchise, and I think that by its very nature lends it to being adaptable and turned into something
so
very
fucking cool. So cool. I
Yeah,
hope we get some really cool. What cinematographer do they need to get on this shit? They need to get the dude from Sicario on
Deakins?
Yes. That's exactly who they need to get. And then you know who they need to they could use the same person that did the score for the game, or they could get the dude from the Mando, or they could get so good. I get so excited. I need $100 million to make a movie, and I will give you a fucking Metal Gear movie. I promise you. It would be the likes no one's ever seen. It would be incredible. Damn it, man. With Poe Dameron. Anyways, I'm just going on. I'm sorry. I'm excited. That's really, cool. I was scrolling through my Facebook. I said, oh, that'd be cool. But I thought it was a rumor, so I just kept scrolling. I didn't look any more into it. I thought it was bullshit. So for you to drop it in here is just blowing my mind.
It is no bullshit. It's coming from Deadline. I mean, that's as official as you can get.
Heard it here
Sony
first,
press
folks.
Release, so
all right. We had to move on.
There you have it. We should. We're roughly around 2 hours at this point, and we haven't talked about a single Lego Star Wars. So
let's get in there.
let's get in there. Let's talk about the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special.
Goddamn
available
fucking
to stream
Poe-Dameron.
exclusively on Disney Plus. Written by David Shane, directed by Ken Cunningham, starring voice talents of a handful of Star Wars major players, along with some other replacements playing the familiar roles from Star Wars. But we have Anthony Daniels, Billy D. Williams, Kelly Marie Tran, allowed to speak more than one single line in this film, I will add. Some of the animated voice crew: D. Bradley Baker, Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, Matthew Wood, and then some others like Helen Sadler, who plays Rey in this, and quite a few more, as there are many cameos within this little 45-minute flick here, which is about Rey, who leaves her friends to prepare for Life Day as she sets off an adventure to gain a deeper knowledge of the Force, which brings her to a mysterious temple where she's hurled into a cross-timeline adventure. And will she make it back in time for Life Day? I don't know. You'll just have to watch to find out, or just keep listening because we'll probably talk about it and spoil it for you guys eventually, but non-spoilers. And, I designed it so that this was a shorter movie. Maybe there's not a lot of substance to it. Maybe it's just a funny little Lego thing. So we don't need to be here an hour talking about Lego Star Wars. Sorry, folks, that didn't want us to do that. But, what'd you think? Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. Did you dig it?
Yeah, I thought it was totally okay. So it made me giggle a couple of spots. It was just totally fine. It was, it didn't blow my socks off or anything. It wasn't Lego Movie.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely well short of that. Not a revelatory experience, but an enjoyable one.
Yeah, an enjoyable one. Yeah, I don't want to sell it short because it was good. I think that I think how they played fast and loose with like the universe of Star Wars and how they traveled through different set pieces and how they introduced new characters into this particular medium. I thought that was interesting. I think how they spoofed off the characterization of certain characters. I thought that was cool and funny. I thought that it was, it was just a enjoyable experience. It wasn't as fucking crazy and wonky as the original Christmas special, but
it was not.
Holiday special,
it was a little.
Say.
I mean,
it was a little tame. Compared
a little
to
tame
that.
in comparison, yeah. In terms of the weirdness, like it's like it's bonkers in the sense of like how it merges so many like different eras of Star Wars, but in terms of just doing some weird out there stir whip, like none of that's here. Like that's like that sort of thing was missing. It was kind of weird because I mean, if I may interject for just a second, I kind of wanted more of the weirdness, like the zaniness of the original holiday special. I thought that this was going to be a little bit more closer to like hopefully being like a good, funny and like animated version of some of that stuff, but like it really was a little bit more kind of straightforward in terms of its humor and approaches to the universe. Like just felt like very kind of standard fare parody, lampshading of things, which is fine. I wanted a little bit more weirdness. There wasn't enough weirdness for my liking, and I didn't think I was going to say that, but that's
especially with it being a Lego deal,
pinnacle of weird in a way. Yeah.
But overall, I think it was totally okay. I think if you want to put something on for your kids to watch while you cook dinner, or if you just want to veg for 45 minutes or whatever, I think it's totally worth watching, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. It's and especially if it aids you in getting into the Life Day spirit or Christmas spirit or holiday spirit or Hanukkah spirit or whatever spirit you may entertain or be in, then I think it's worth watching.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know, it's just an enjoyable little deal. That's what I would say. It's an enjoyable little deal. That's how I'd classify that.
Yeah, I fully agree. We don't need, I mean, it's not something that demands an extensive conversation. You know what I mean?
I did, like I said, the best part about it was hopping from not even I don't even know how to even properly say it. But hopping
era to era.
To era. That's the
sequel
the
trilogy to original trilogy to prequel trilogy, and kind of mixing and matching all of those, and how does Rey interact with Darth Vader? How does Rey interact with Tatooine?
How does Darth Vader interact with Darth Vader?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I think it's totally fun. It's totally fun little deal.
it's fun. It's not meant to be anything groundbreaking. It's not meant to be anything, like I said, revelatory, but it serves its purpose of being a fun little send-up of the Star Wars universe, and ultimately, is it better than The Rise of Skywalker? Yeah, probably. It's certainly shorter, and it's certainly more enjoyable to watch, so, it has that going for it. And I think it does, maybe we'll talk about it very briefly in spoilers, which I expect will also be a brief discussion. It does seem like it kind of dances around a lot of the biggest things of The Rise of Skywalker, of just being like, yeah, we know it exists, and like we gave Rey a yellow lightsaber, but like that's about all the lip service we're paying to it. So, it's fun. It's fun enough for what it is. Like it's enjoyable. It was cute, funny, humorous. I liked the animation style. It's Lego stuff. I mean, if you've seen any Lego stuff, or even if you played like any of the Lego games, like it's that style of humor. Like I think it's very characteristic of anything that's branded, with the Lego IP. So it's fully in line with all that stuff. So
totally.
I don't know. Is there much else to say about non-spoilers for the Lego Star Wars?
No, not
special?
really. I mean, I don't even know how much spoiler stuff there is, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid. Why don't we just go and just say recommendations then? I mean, 5-tiered scale to remind our listeners who haven't been around for a month, because we haven't been around for a month. Very yes being at the top, followed by yes, totally fine, and then shithouse. Like, I know, it almost seems unfair to give it the same like ranking scale, because it's like, it's
fucking 45-minute kind of deal, man. It's like
a different level of kind of thing that we usually try to do, but
it's a special.
Yeah, it's just it's a couple episodes of a Star Wars TV show kind of stapled into each other in terms of runtimes, certainly. So it's not anything like it's gonna blow your mind or anything, but certainly good for kids. And not to the exclusion of adults either. I think Star Wars fans will enjoy kind of the zaniness and just the way that they treat certain characters. I think works really well. It's a fun kind of crossover type thing that they did. So, where do you stand? I mean, if you have to pick one of the 5, what do you
I would say it's I'd say it's just totally fine. It's a totally fine deal.
Okay.
I mean, I think it set out to do what it set out to do. I don't think that it... I don't know. It's just totally fine. I think it's just totally fine. I didn't like it or love it. I mean, I didn't love it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, somewhere in the middle there. It's just, it exists and you had a good time with it. Would you ever watch it again? Would you watch it again? I guess
I would. I mean, if somebody wanted to watch it, I'd watch it again.
You put it on.
Unwatchable. Right.
It's more
I'd probably look at my phone
than anything you'd ever want to put back on the TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I'll say yes, just because I think for what it, taking into consideration what it is, I think it does pretty much everything that it sets out to do. It's just that what it aspires to be is not some sort of groundbreaking thing, and so it's kind of restricted by that. So I feel too bad, like penalizing it to say that, like, I do think totally fine is an absolutely fair assessment of it. But I couldn't at the same time say it's the very yes thing, because like. It's honestly a very specific kind of thing in its own sort of way. Like, maybe you don't care about Lego shit. And certainly if you don't like Star Wars, this is a waste of time for you. Kids might still enjoy it if they're kind of just, been moderately exposed to Star Wars. But, as someone that is a very big Star Wars fan, I enjoyed the fan servicey stuff of it. And I think that's kind of just where it starts and ends, is just, kind of some goofy, fun fan service. Not enough fan service to the original 1978 holiday special for some reason, although we did get Chewbacca's family in it, which was appreciated, popping up here and there. But I say yes, just in terms of being a pretty well executed version of a fun thing. It hits the mark on that in that regard. So yeah, that's what I have. So full spoilers for the Lego Star Wars holiday special. I have like a tone of voice that's just like, does this man even want to talk about spoilers for this thing? And I guess my question is not really like what, like, oh my God, could you believe that happened? I just want to ask you, like, what are the things that stood out to you? Like, what were the funniest moments that you can recall? Like, what were the most, like, kind of cool or interesting things that happened, or funniest things? Like,
I thought so I had 2 funny parts that I thought they were pretty good.
Okay.
The first one was the big reveal with Darth Vader in A New Hope when he when the Empire cuts through the doors and then they rush in and there's Darth Vader walking in behind the stormtroopers, and Darth Vader's there and they interact with each other. I'm you. And then they do whatever they do. I thought that was pretty funny. I also thought it was funny when they popped in and there was pod racing. I thought that was pretty funny too.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the pod racing bit. Aside from that, those two were probably the funniest things for me, I think. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing was knee-jerkingly slapping my knee, coughing because I'm laughing so hard. I just kind of giggled at those two little bits.
Yeah. I think the closest thing to that for me, something that really got Anna and I just really, really good, and I think it was at least in part because of of us just watching the original holiday special, is we were keen to see what they did with Chewie's family in this one and how they were portrayed. And Itchy, who is Chewie's father, who is the White Wookiee, there's a moment towards the end where he just picks up BB-8 randomly and just chucks him across the snow. And Poe is very heavily protesting, hey, that's BB-8, that's not a snowball, kind of thing. And it was just such a random thing. And after listening to this character communicate for 15 minutes at a time, and the other holiday special, just do something so random and fucking hilarious was, I don't know, it got us real good. And then immediately after that, there's porgs laying out on the snow, and then Chewbacca just fucking belly flops on top of the snow just while he's just yelling. I think anytime a Wookiee spoke, we just cracked up just because it just had that significance to it. But beyond that, I mean, it was just little things here and there, Dio was fun, being sad in there, and I don't know, just some of the interactions were fun. Kylo and Hux was kind of funny when he was shirtless.
That was funny. Just little tidbits.
Poe's crying a lot. Yeah, just little things, little enough that they don't stand out as being oh my God, I lost it at this part. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. But they worked in moment to moment, things were funny. I don't think there was a point where it was unfunny. Did you feel like it
no, it never missed the mark. It just
never quite.
It just pays homage to Star Wars. I mean, that's what it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think there was anything super over the top funny or anything like that. I just think it was a lighthearted Star Wars experience, and I'm totally fine with that. I don't want to sound like I'm down on it, because I'm not. I totally enjoyed it, but I don't know. I'm just captivated by the fucking Mando. If you want to know the truth, when I think of Star Wars right now, I think of the fucking Mandalorian, and that's just about it. I'm sorry,
this doesn't quite hit the same benchmark in terms of right. Excitement levels and such. Yeah, that's certainly valid. I mean, we can go in circles just talking about little things here and there. I guess maybe the only thing I'll think of is they made a joke about surely there's no way that Palpatine could come back from being thrown down a reactor shaft, and I expected them to travel to the events of the Rise of Skywalker, and I think they did end up at Exegol with all the Star Destroyers at one point, but it seemed like they made a very concerted effort to just dance around the stupidity of that film. So I did find that kind of fascinating. The writer was just nah, I'm not touching that shit. You know what I mean? Other than just Rey's got the lightsaber and Fenn's maybe force sensitive. Let's go. Let's kind of use that as our starting off point to do all the other weird zany kind of time travel-y stuff that we want to do. So yeah, it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's totally fine. It's however you feel about it. Chuck it up on your Disney Plus if you already have it. You have kids. It'll you can do far worse. It's entertaining.
You can do far worse. That's certainly the truth.
It's got a little bit of a Christmassy vibe, a little bit of a Life Day spirit to it. So, if you're in the mood for some lighthearted Christmas fare that's not specifically Christmas fare, then there's a little something for you, a little holiday special for you. So yeah. I think that more than covers it, and I think the best way to round out this episode is to circle back to what we've been doing for a month, basically. So, to you, I ask, obviously there's a lot of things that you did while you were while you were suffering the effects of COVID, but within that time, outside of that time, since we last recorded, what you've been up to?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. I've been up to more than I've ever been up to.
Okay. Well, do you have a list of it? I mean, are you going
I
off
actually
the cuff?
made...
Did you okay.
For the first time, I think, really ever. Usually I'm up to just work and like a few things peppered in.
Yeah.
To where I don't even really make a list. I just fucking kind of just go off the top of my head of what I can think of. But
right.
I've actually composed a list of things that I've been up to.
Well, let's work. I mean, I have a list too, but I want to hear about your list. Well, I mean,
okay,
it's been a month. Let's hear about it. What's going on? What's going on in the land of
I watched
Andrew?
Possessor.
The movie Possessor. Okay.
And that was a doozy. I did watch it under sickness. I would like to watch it again under clear mind. But I remember thinking it was way out there. Like it was, it's pretty cool, but it was way out there. So I would be interested to watch that one again. It does I remember liking it's been a couple weeks now, since I watched it. And like I said, I was sick when I watched it, but, I remembered enjoying the soundtrack a lot, the score. And I remember thinking that the concept was cool. Like it's far out sci-fi. It deals with like implanting chips and being able to remotely control people. But then it deals a lot with the people controlling the people.
Okay.
Right. So it has to do with like remaining, almost like Inception. They implant the ideas. They want to make sure they're not lost when they get lost in someone else. And it kind of deals with that, I think. What little bit I remember, like I said, it's been a little far out, and I was not in the best of health when I watched it. I tell you what I did watch in its entirety, and I am 100%. I would say that I'm probably 98% certain it's shit. And it's probably like the worst sci-fi I've committed myself to watching, I think, ever. And that's Raised by Wolves. Raised by Wolves is a pile of fucking shit. I can tell you that for sure. It is
so you're
the worst.
Saying this is not why you should subscribe to HBO Max.
No. Okay. If you subscribe to HBO Max, actively avoid Raised by Wolves, because it just, like you watch the first episode and you're like, yeah, maybe it gets better. Maybe it gets better. And much like my stock market performance that I've been having the past couple weeks, sometimes you should just quit it. Sometimes you should just get out instead of riding the wave, because there's no wave to be had. This starts like at like 85% and it just goes down from there. It never hits over 85. I would say 85% is a high starting point. I think it's probably closer to 60, 65, just enough over like mediocre kind of shit to like, wow, this is dog shit kind of shit. It's real bad. Definitely don't recommend it. It's the best thing. The best comparison I have is almost like sci-fi. It's like it belongs on Sci-Fi. It doesn't belong on HBO.
Okay, yeah, that's not usually a compliment.
No, that's. Just don't watch it. I did it for you. Just don't watch it.
That's definitely not a compliment.
Yeah, just don't watch it. I did watch The Hunters, which was pretty cool, or I think it's called The Hunters. It's
Amazon,
about the Amazon with Al Pacino and that one guy, the one kid actor. He's not a kid. He plays a kid in this one, or a young teenager or something, but I can't remember his name. But
I think Logan Lerman.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
And The Hunters is mediocre at best. Like it always had me like interested to see what happened next, I guess, but it was never very good. It was just something to kind of watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's about the extent of that. It's totally. I mean, if you just have nothing to watch and you're quarantine for 2 weeks and you're bored out of your mind, maybe just watch The Hunters. That's totally okay. It's totally okay. Mando, I am up to speed on The Mandalorian. I have to say, are you caught up on The Mandalorian?
I am through, I guess, episode 6 is the most recent drop as recording this. So I am up to date. Let's keep this spoiler free because we're going to want to talk about season 2 in its entirety in just a couple weeks when it wraps up. But it's good. It's pretty good stuff. Yeah. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think it's pretty good. I like it a lot. I like the Mando a whole lot. I think we got some good stuff this season to talk about.
Lots of good stuff. Lots of just big stuff to talk.
Lots
like
of big
holy
fucking
shit kind of stuff.
Yes.
To talk about. Yeah. Like that first episode, I was like, "Oh my god!" And then like every episode after that, I was like,
"Oh my god!" Right? Crazy shit. So we got some good stuff. I haven't seen quite the scale that we saw in the first episode. Not yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
we'll get there, though,
I don't think they've expanded that aspect ratio again, but maybe episode 8 they'll go for a little symmetry and do it again.
Yeah, so Mandalorian's got me pumped up for Star Wars. I got some Sekiro. So last time I think I talked about Sekiro, I fought this optional like guy that you can go back to at some point. Who kicked my ass and took all my stuff. Come to find out, I wasn't that far in the game, and so I just restarted a save file and started from the beginning again.
Okay.
Ended up doing a lot better this time. Did not fight that guy. Went a totally different route that I didn't even know existed, which is pretty cool. And I beat my first boss, which is pretty cool. Haven't touched it in like a month. Or since I've been sick, so I'm probably going to be shit again. I'm probably going to start over fucking again.
It's the perils of those games is you got to be consistent, otherwise your skills just evaporate.
Exactly. But I can confirm once again that Sekiro is really fucking good. It's really cool. And I wish I had the time to dedicate to like at least 14 hours or 15 hours worth of dedicated gameplay to just knock it out, because I imagine that's what it would take in order just to finish it out. But it proves to be difficult. I also played a game called Hades, which is pretty cool. It's by the same people that did Transistor and Bastion.
Yeah,
and
Supergiant games.
Yes, and Hades is I can tell you that I enjoy Sekiro for its own reasons, like the difficulty and the I don't know, just the rhythm of the combat, and the gameplay, the replayability, the speed, and the just I don't know. Hades has a lot going for it. I think Hades is probably a very incredible game. I really enjoy Hades. Hop in. Get done, and see, that's the problem. I mean, that's why I liked Rocket League so much. 5 minutes in, 5 minutes, just get out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Hades, I can spend 20 minutes doing a run. I'm not incredible at it. If I am incredible on that one particular run, I can always get out if I want to, and then start over or start in the middle of that run. It doesn't make a difference, but just bang, 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 bang. They're like games for like people that grew up with video games that are now adults, and they can get in and they can get out when they need to. You know what I mean? And I really enjoy that. As I grow older and I can't dedicate the time to long gameplay sessions and that sort of thing, I really appreciate the quick, snappy nature of certain particular games. And that is one game that I think that does really good. Another show is His Dark Materials. I got through season 1 and I'm caught up on season 2. I think His Dark Materials is I don't think it's particularly completely fucking awesome, but I think it's entertaining enough. I think between it's not even like in the same realm as Raised by Wolves, if we're comparing what I've watched so far. Like Raised by Wolves is like fucking like Barney, I guess, or something, like Raised by Wolves should not even be on the list. It's way better than Hunters. It's probably the best show I've talked about so far. It's cool. It's sci-fi. It's got intriguing, like the universe is intriguing to where like I actively looked up things because it's based off a book or a series of books. I actively looked that stuff up while the show was going on. It's got a good actors and actresses in it. It's got a good cast. And it's just intriguing. I mean, I think it's cool. So that's on HBO Max. If that helps the cause. It comes out every Monday. It's in season 2. And the last episode was a pretty big deal, I think. Okay. Yeah, so cool show. Queen's Gambit. It's another thing I watched. We might talk about Queen's Gambit at some point. I don't know, so I don't want to get too in depth.
If I ever get around to watching it, of course. That would help, I think.
Well, if I ever get around to watching it, doesn't sound incredibly hopeful, so I will just say that it is easily the best thing that I watched on this list that I'm going over.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do want to watch it. I will say. It's just once I have a little bit more free time, it'll be a little easier to do that sort of thing. You know, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But I've heard good things from multiple sources, not just yourself, so that I'm being encouraged in many ways, in multiple ways to do it. So short
series, which is easily, as we talked about numerous times on the podcast, short series are my favorite series to have. They're quick, they're snappy, they get their point across, they get their story across, and they're out. I like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we had it with this show. It's well acted, it's well casted. The cinematography is on point. I think it's a beautiful show. And I think when you can make something interesting, don't get me wrong, I think chess is interesting. But when you can have something as widely successful as the show has been and have the content about chess, I think it speaks volumes about your characterizations, how it's written, how it's shot. And I think when you can take seemingly boring content and make it incredibly interesting and wildly successful, I think you've done something very good for yourself. So sense. I think for that reason, I think Queen's Gambit is completely awesome. Very good to Netflix. Hats off to them. And they got themselves a winner on that one. I think it's really something special. Nice. I watched La La Land again. It's another something very special. Love it. Cried again. The music's excellent. The acting's excellent.
City of Stars.
Yeah, it's just so fucking good. Blue, blue, blue,
yeah,
blue.
I should watch that again sometime. I loved it. I mean, that movie fucked up my life for like a full ass day after I watched it the first time.
It's good. It's potent movie. I was happy to watch it again. I've built 2 things so far.
Handyman. Can't keep him down for long. He's back.
Yeah.
Back in the shop. What are you building?
I built this, I think, 72-inch long sign by, I think, 3 foot tall out of fucking wood. Mm-hmm. Stained it and painted it, and it's got this little saying on it that Sarah liked. I think it says, like, the best memories are gathered around the table or something like that. And it takes up a huge chunk of the wall. And then I replaced the dining room table with another dining. I didn't build the fucking table. It'd be cool if I built the dining room table, but I didn't.
You can take credit for it. I won't challenge you. I won't tell anyone.
But I replaced the table and it matches the sign. And so like there's this whole like feng shui centered around the sign, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then I've been building a booth. So I have like this corner section in the house. And I got this corner window. And for the it's not big enough to warrant like going out and buying a piece of furniture for it, because the furniture that I would buy for it is too big. Mm-hmm. And then anything that's smaller is just too small, and it just doesn't make sense for the space. Because like people like walk in between the wall and the corner and like the bar that I have. So anyways, and this is what got me like buying woodworking tools and stuff in the first place, is I just told myself I'm just going to build something to put there. And After I get off of here, it's 10:18 at night. I'm going to sand and start. I'm probably going to try to finish painting tonight. I've been drinking an energy drink and beer at the same time.
A healthy combination.
A healthy combination. I'm back 100%, as I said, after the COVID. I'm risking life and limb again. Anyways, so I'm going to be painting this afternoon tonight to try to finish it before a little get together on Saturday. But it's a booth, and it can sit. It's already sat 4 people. I saw 4 people sit on it at one time. It's bearing weight, which is good. It's attached to the wall, and it's going to be painted the same color as the cabinets in the kitchen. So it's all going to be like one space. It's all going to match, and hopefully it looks really good. But that the booth has been like a couple week deal. You know, it's just a bigger project.
Yeah.
And then let's see, what else do I have? I have Christmas spirit written down in my like list of shit. I can easily say that I've never had this much Christmas spirit like in memory. May have had it when I was a little kid, but I've never had this much Christmas spirit in my life. I have to say that I am like, I don't know. It's coming out my ears. The Christmas spirit is. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, man. It just feels good. We're gonna get this year over with. Can be happy for what you got and what you're working for and just all that stuff, and it's really good. There's excellent Christmas movies to be watched to help you get into the Christmas spirit. I went and saw The Elf, or not The Elf, Elf, I guess is probably what it's called. In drive-in, which is the first drive-in experience I've ever had.
Nice.
Yeah, and I brought a couple brewskis, and Sarah cooked dinner and put it in like Tupperwares, and we brought some potato chips and stuff, and we just laid in the back of the Jeep and like watched this drive-in movie. It was simply incredible. It was an awesome movie-going experience that I've never had before, and I'd love to do it again. And the Elf.
Where did you guys end up going? Like where? Like geographically, where'd you end up going? Is it Tampa somewhere or what?
Yeah, no, it's in Tampa. We went to. Do you know where Armature Works is?
I think you've told me about it, and I looked it up on Google Maps, so I can go from there. And
it's like in the Bay Area. It's
okay.
You can see the Tampa skyline and stuff. It's right there before. It's right there, real close to downtown Tampa. And we went there and we watched a movie, and it was real awesome. And Elf is a classic. I hadn't seen it in so long. I laughed my ass off. People were actually looking at me because I was laughing so hard. People would turn around and look. When he, what did he do? Oh, God damn it. What did he do? Oh, he goes into the mall, and there's the perfume that's supposed to be like natural flavors or whatever. And he's like, oh, spray. And he starts spraying it in his mouth, and it's fucking perfume, and he sprayed it in his mouth, and he's freaking out, and it's hilarious. Elf is a classic. I hung Christmas lights on the outside of the house. I thought I was going to flip over the roof and die, but there's Christmas lights on like the front eave of the house that I've never hung before. Never hung Christmas lights before in my life. Did it this year. Christmas trees and stuff, it's all up now. It's nice. And the last thing that I can think of was Cobra Kai. Finished season 2 of Cobra Kai.
Nice. Okay.
It's good. I like it too.
Season 3 is coming out soon-ish.
Is it?
I think early next year. Yeah, I believe so. It's nice that it's on Netflix now, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I don't have to go through like a whole subscription thing in order to get it. So good for them. But Cobra Kai is pretty good. I like Cobra Kai. I like the pacing of the episodes. I feel like the episodes are short. Feels concise. Cobra Kai's always been something. Like I think it was like one of the last things I watched while I was quarantined, or one of the first. I don't think it was one of the first. I think it was one of the last. But I was able to burn through it so quickly, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Still, like I was hesitant to start it because I just wasn't in the mood to watch it. But once I started, I was happy that I watched it. So Cobra Kai is good. Anyways, now that I've taken up a lot of your time, what have you been up to, dude?
Well, we actually there is some crossover here, so we probably won't need to take up too much of your time or too much of our listeners' time, but certainly a lot to catch up on, a lot that can be accomplished within a month, COVID or not. So I kind of just lumped mine in terms of kind of format, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but movies, TV shows, video games, books. That's the order I'm going to go in. So starting with some movies, I watched Legally Blonde with Anna probably a couple weeks back. I hadn't seen it in a long time.
How accurate is it?
You know, there are aspects of it that are a little off, but you know, it's certainly fun to watch a movie about going to law school while you're going to law school. You know, after you've been doing it for 2+ years, it adds a little bit more perspective to the experience. But there are some things that ring true. Some things, you know, like little details of like what they're covering day one in like a civil procedure class is like that. No, that doesn't make any sense. But like the actual, like the literal details, like the socialization and like interacting with peers and getting cold called and like what that means, like, you know, like all that's kind of pretty close to it. So it's fun. It was enjoyable. You know, maybe being a first year law student and like representing, you know, someone at trial is unlikely to happen, you know, basically on your own. That's usually not allowed in most places. I think probably all the places in the country, if I'm not mistaken, but
you got to pass the bar before you can represent somebody, right?
You can be certified. I mean, at least in Pennsylvania specifically, you can be certified, but you still have to have a bar licensed attorney with you, basically, to kind of supervise. Even if you're basically doing it effectively by yourself, you still need to have someone in the room.
Same thing. What do they call that? If I was certified, if I was a lawyer in Florida and I wanted to represent somebody in Pennsylvania, what do they call that? Do you know what they call that? They're doing it with the kid that shot people in the streets. I looked it up.
I mean, yeah, you still need to be like
it's a Latin thing.
Partnered with like I'm not sure, but you're saying you just need to be partnered with someone who's licensed in the jurisdiction
in the state that you're at, right?
The case is moving forward. Yeah, right. So yeah, kind of the same thing. Yeah, more or less. So anyway, Legally Blonde was really fun. It was enjoyable. I ended up buying like the 2-pack with the first and the second one, but we haven't watched Red, White, and Blonde yet. So it'll be on the list at some point when we get some free time. I watched a Hitchcock movie called The Man Who Knew Too Much, of which there are 2 different versions, and I watched the 1956 version, which is the later one. I'd never seen it before. Stars Jimmy Stewart and Doris Day. Pro
Hog Vice. Sorry, Pro Hog Vice is what it's called.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Sorry.
Man Who Knew Too Much. It's kind of like a thriller. It's about a man who knew too much. No, it's about a man who he's on vacation in Morocco. He meets a man who tells him a few things, and it turns out like he has to kind of act on that information in a timely manner and prevent the assassination of or try to prevent the assassination of a political actor. So it's good. You know, Hitchcock was obviously a master of the filmmaking craft, and you know, I admittedly haven't seen probably the majority of his filmography.
Psycho and the Birds, you saw those, right?
I've seen Psycho, I've seen The Birds. I think I've seen Rear Window, but it's been years. Vertigo, I don't think I've ever seen. I actually did buy like a 4-pack of like 4K movies of Hitchcock movies, which was those 4: Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds. But you know, I just feel like I owe it to myself to watch more. So The Man Who Knew Too Much, and I got it for like $3 or $4 digitally on Amazon, and so we just ended up watching it kind of over the Thanksgiving break. So it was good. I really enjoyed it. We rewatched Moulin Rouge, which is Anna's favorite movie on Thanksgiving Day. I guess Thanksgiving night, really.
Uka Buka Shosu Slay Sla. That one.
She loved it when you did it last year, and I'm sure she'll love it equally when you do it this year. So yes, that's the one. Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman. It's good. You know, the first time I'd watched it was last year, and it's a movie that is so insane within the first 15 minutes. It's so fast paced and over the top that it's kind of jarring. It's very jarring at first, and I think knowing what to expect walking in was helpful to sinking into it a little bit more easily this time. The first time it really took me like a half hour to settle in, and this time it was just like, wow, this really just jumps into things and is very frenetic about how it approaches its filmmaking, but it's enjoyable, and the music in it's really good, and obviously Anna loves it, and so it's fun to enjoy her favorite movie with her, so it's good, and I think
call me Mona Lisa tonight.
Oh boy, that's it for the movies. In terms of TV shows, I'll just go ahead and hit. Cobra
All right,
Kai
Alex
rewatching.
Trebek.
Okay. Moving on, we have Colton, who has watched Cobra Kai and The Mandalorian in his free time. So Cobra Kai, I'm rewatching the first season. I'm like 7 episodes in, so I still haven't gotten to stuff that I haven't watched previously with the second season, but I want to be done with the second season in time for the third season. And then the Mando I'm up to date on, and it's great. We'll talk about it. We'll definitely have an episode on it in the next few weeks.
That last episode of the Mando.
There's some good shit. I mean, the last 2, I'd say.
Last 2,
really.
That's fair. The last 2.
Yeah. So beyond that, a lot of West Wing. Finished season 3, about halfway through season 4, and then we ended up watching the HBO Max special, the Get Out the Vote kind of thing that they did, which was like a live a filmed, staged reenactment of one of the episodes from season 3. With kind of like little segments in between, like with the cast just kind of, talking about things and stuff. So we ended up watching it after the election results had kind of, after the projections had been made. And it was kind of good to like the West Wing is like such of an idealized version of what politics should be. Like, I mean, as it stands now with what happened in the past 4 years, it's just pure fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, it is absolutely, like, it was always idealized. Now it is just the most unrealistic thing of all time in terms of, like, what politics are supposed to look like. But it's still really enjoyable as, like, kind of this idea of, like, here's what the framers envisioned, like, government looking like and how it should, operate ideally. Like, where, there are checks and balances, but everyone, is serving an aim of these democratic ideals and stuff like that. And people have different approaches, and sometimes you have to compromise. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose some, and stuff like that. But I thought that, I find The West Wing very enjoyable to watch. I mean, it's one of those things, like Anna and I, pretty much anytime we have breakfast, we're watching an episode of The West Wing. So we've been burning through it at a pretty good clip over the past month or so. And the special was kind of a fun thing. It was like a weird choice of episode, I thought, but Aaron Sorkin, the writer-creator of The West Wing, basically said it was like his love letter to elections, and so that's why he kind of chose to to do that one as kind of the one that they reenacted. And it's good to see the cast a few years later, a little bit older, a little bit grayer, but for the most part, still got it. So I enjoyed that. So, last thing on TV front is a little Australian sketch comedy show on Netflix called Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun, which I
think I know exactly which one that is.
Yeah.
I need to look it up.
Assume you have not watched, maybe you've seen something or heard about it or something like that, but
I think I scrolled over it and I saw like the preview where they're like talking about they're beating on the pans. Everything's a drum. Yes.
Yeah, that would be the one. Yep.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
6 episodes. They're pretty short, like usually 17 to 20 minutes.
Is it good?
It's hit and miss in the sense that like some things are funnier than others and some sketches just kind of get drawn out too long. But on the whole, I enjoyed it quite a bit. There's a few that like really, really kind of got me good. And like the Everything's a Drum one, I actually think is probably one of the better ones. Like it was a good way to kind of start the show. I mean, I watched it. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are Australian, and like one of the ones I listen to, The Weekly Planet, is like they are like the main podcast of the Planet Broadcasting Network, which includes Aunty Donna's podcast. So they're friends with the sketch troupe Aunty Donna, and so they'd kind of put the word about this thing coming out on Netflix, and it was kind of like a weird thing that like this niche kind of Melbourne-based Australian comedy thing was getting Netflix funding with Ed Helms involved, and so it was just kind of a cool thing. So I ended up watching it just to see how it was, and I enjoyed it on the whole. I said hit and miss sometimes with what the sketches are, but Not for everyone, you know. I think it's a specific kind of humor. I think certainly
Everything's a drum. I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, which you know may or may not work for everyone, and maybe some of the sketches that didn't hit for me maybe hit, you know, maybe they hit a little harder for some other folks, I guess. So, I liked it. Yeah, it's enjoyable. You know, it's light, breezy. It's easy to get through. It's short, and fairly funny overall. And I feel like, you know, it's just kind of a totally different thing than anything I usually watch. I enjoyed it from that perspective. So moving into the video games land on the Switch side of things, I finally beat the second house, the second campaign of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Still playing it. Impressive.
Well, I've now put it back on the shelf, so to speak, because I finished the second run through. I fully beat it, did everything I could with it, and so now I'm moving on to other things. But yeah, it was really great. You know, I think Fire Emblem Three Houses, it's probably late now, but a lot of Black Friday sales had it for like $30 or $40, and like if you have a Switch and you haven't played it, it's a steal. It's awesome. You know, it's a great mix of, you know, like Persona styled gameplay with Fire Emblem tactical RPG styled gameplay. Like, it's just good. I think it's just such a really good, well made package, and I really love it. And there's tons of replay value with how many routes are in it. So I've now put over 100 hours into it between playing two separate campaigns.
God dang!
So clearly, I liked it. So. Anyway, the other big thing that I got was a PlayStation 5. You know, if anyone cares about that sort of thing.
Not a lot of people have that one.
Well, I think as many people as possible have it. It's in short supply these days. People are struggling to find them, but yeah, I put in my pre-order when they opened them up, and I had to wait until 10 p.m. on launch day for Amazon to deliver it to the wrong address until I confronted them and said, "Hey, that's the wrong address," and they're like, "Oh shit, yeah, sorry, let me go grab it and give it to you," even though I said it was delivered and handed it to a resident when they'd stuck it in front of a door. But hey, we got it all sorted out. No big deal.
Damn.
So yeah, I've been playing PlayStation 5 a little bit. Not as much as I'd like. It's
how's that controller? I thought about buying a controller just for the computer. Is it good?
I mean, I think it's great. I don't know how the functionality would work on a PC. It's got like haptic triggers that like they kind of have resistance to them. It's kind of hard to describe almost, but like...
Is it truly as revolutionary as everybody makes it sound? Does it feel like a totally different experience on a controller?
It depends on its implementation. I mean, at its core, it's a controller. It's got, fancier bells and whistles than a lot of controllers in terms... I mean, I think it feels like it's sleek, and I think it feels nice. And I think they have Astro's Playroom included on the PlayStation 5. Like it's a game that's bundled with it, and just preloaded onto the console. And that is a really good tech demonstration of like how the motion in it, how the mic works, how the touchpad works, and how the haptic triggers work. So in the speaker is a lot better than the PS4 DualShock 4 one was. So, I mean, like I said, at its core, it's a controller. I don't think it's going to change the way you play. And I think if you're playing on PC, it's probably going to function very similar because it doesn't have the specific PS5 type things that I think developers could take advantage of. So, it's really good. I think, I'm happy with it. It feels good. Web slinging in, say, Spider-Man Miles Morales, you get a little bit of resistance when you're kind of, pulling on the webs as you swing from building to building and kind of, swing, hurl new webs from each wrist. It's pretty good. I've been playing a bit of Spider-Man. Spider-Man looks amazing. The ray tracing and the reflections are just fucking ridiculous. I'm sacrificing the frame rate to make it look beautiful. And then I turn to Demon Souls when I want frame rate. I got a locked 60 frames on Demon Souls. I'm not any further than I was the last time we spoke, which to be fair, I guess I haven't talked about on the podcast, but I beat the prologue level, which is to say that I died to the boss at the prologue level as you're intended to, although not required to. You can technically beat them. And then I'm kind of in the midst of the first like full-fledged level, and I've died a handful of times and mostly gotten my souls back. There's a point where I'm at now where there's two dragons that are just chilling. And like, there's a bunch of treasure like kind of underneath them, and I'm like trying to figure out if there's a way to carefully run up and get the treasure from the bodies, like loot it from the bodies, and not get burnt to a crisp by the dragons, because I've definitely gotten burnt to a crisp 2 times in a row now. So thinking I might give up on that particular campaign and just move along and maybe revisit it later if that's what you're supposed to do. But it's really cool. consoles, it's a big motherfucker. I will say that. I had to empty out a whole little slot in my dresser just to have it fit in there. But the design's weird and alien-esque and kind of bonkers, but it's cool and it runs quietly, and the games look really good. I had pre-ordered Cyberpunk, so I'll play that at some point. And one advantage of driving down to Florida is that I can bring my PlayStation 5 with me. So I'm planning on doing that.
We can try it on the OLED.
Yeah. So that's it on the video gaming front. On the book front, I finished Star Wars Aftermath: Empire's End, which was the final book in that trilogy. Kind of the wrap up to how the most of the remnants of the major remnants of the Empire fall. Obviously, the Mandalorian is still dealing with some other remnants of the Empire, but how the biggest contingent of it falls, and how that Star Destroyer ends up on Jakku. That's what that book deals with, that sort of thing. So that was very cool and probably my favorite of the trilogy. And it was nice to finish it because I started it like 7 months ago and basically stopped reading it for a couple month period, and then I got back and finished it, which led me into rereading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which I'm about 300 pages in on. My progress has slowed as I've been working on school stuff and exams and all that good stuff, but I read it probably 4-ish years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and the fourth book in the Stormlight Archive, that series just came out. And so my lofty aspirational goal is to figure out how to read at a pretty good clip and get through at least the first book, getting the second one, getting the third one, and by God, maybe I'll be ready to read the fourth one in a few months' time. So,
are they truly incredible?
It is very good. I really like the first one. I think the characterization's done really well. I think one thing that's helpful is that I have familiarity with these characters walking back in, even if it has been years ago since I read it. And so I think it's easier to kind of pick up on things. Sometimes fantasy settings and like magic systems can be overwhelming to like kind of understand and like really fully absorb and process them.
Yeah.
So it helps to have that kind of familiarity walking back into the universe. But I am enjoying, I've read 300 pages in a few weeks, which for me is many pages, admittedly. So, and to be fair, probably 80% of that I did in about a week and a half span. And then just this past week, 2 weeks has been pretty slow in terms of making progress. So yeah, it's good. It's 1,000-page book, and all of them in the second, third, and fourth are all even longer than the first one. So it's 4,000 pages plus of shit to get through, and they're not small pages. They're big pages with like a pretty normal sized font. So like there's a lot there. Like, it's dense for sure, but it's not written in a way. It's not. I think Sanderson has a very, I don't want to say very simplistic, but a generally simplistic way of writing things, in the sense that he doesn't have a George R.R. Martin style of writing of, let me spend 10 pages describing the color and texture of these leaves. You know what I mean? It's a very action-based kind of way that he talks about things. Like, it's either dialogue or some sort of action that's being happened, and it's fast-paced. He doesn't waste time. Like each page usually serves some sort of purpose in terms of moving either a character in a direction, whether it's dialogue, or in terms of just advancing the storyline because of, some sort of action beat that happens. So it's cool. And I think there are a lot of aspects I think that would appeal to you personally, but obviously there's a barrier of, reading 1,000 pages is not nothing. Mm-hmm. It really is not nothing. So then there's audiobooks too, but those are fucking 50 hours long. So,
that's true.
There are barriers anywhere you go.
I do have the first book though. I have the first book right there, The Way of Kings. I'm looking at it.
So yeah,
it's there to be read.
So anyway, that's kind of what I've been up to, and perhaps now is a good time to say goodbye to our listeners. I think it's been a very extensive coverage of everything except for the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special in a way, but that's kind of, I think we adequately flagged that up front, hopefully. So hopefully everyone enjoyed playing a month's worth of catch up with us. I think it was long overdue, and so I think it's safe to say we're back. Obviously I still have some exams and stuff to worry about, so the consistency in terms of release schedule may be a little bit in question, but the hope is that it won't be another month for me here before you hear from us again. I think that'll be safe to say. So anyway, thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. If you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. We'll do a bonus episode at some point. I just, you know,
at this point, it's just a recurring joke.
This whole year has just been a fucking wash, and I feel bad about it, but it's tough, and we'll get around to it, and then maybe we'll get some normalcy established on that thing at some point. 2021, you know, and that's the New Year's resolution. Maybe we can look forward to is figuring out our Patreon shit. So anyway, our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at WRRPod. You can like us on Facebook just by searching for Watch Review Repeat. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, anything you've been up to that you think, you know, if you have some thoughts on Queen's Gambit or any other things that are coming out recently or coming up in December, and you want to chip in and give us some thoughts, Mandalorian maybe, that would be a good one, certainly, since we definitely will be covering that. Just send that our way, watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Next episode, I know we talked about doing Mank, which is the latest David Fincher flick with Gary Oldman about the kind of making of Citizen Kane, or at least the screenwriting process of Citizen Kane. You can do Queen's Gambit. It's another one if I indeed do find the time to watch it at some point.
It's a good one.
And there's a lot of stuff, certainly towards the end of December, that we'll be doing, just as a preview of coming attractions, from The Mandalorian to Wonder Woman 1984 dropping on Christmas, to Soul, Disney and Pixar's Soul dropping on Christmas as well. So we'll have plenty to talk about in the coming weeks. So stay tuned on what exactly we do end up working on next. But it's been fun catching up with you, Andrew, and I hope our listeners enjoyed a return to the Watch Review Repeat podcast. Going on 3 hours later or so.
Good catching up with you too, sir. Have a good night.
All right,
and party on, dudes.
I was gonna say, shit. What I it's been so long, I don't remember what my line is. Line. Give me my line. Be excellent to each other. Party on.